Hello and welcome to 6th part. Today I'm gonna continue the story What If Deku Had the Spider-Man Quirk, Part 5. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
Another beautiful day, the sun was out, the birds were singing, and everything was fine. Well, mostly fine, because today a big pink humanoid was holding a family hostage. He laughed as Mount Lady, Kamui Wood, and another hero tried to protect the family from harm from the bad guy. He laughed as he held the family in his big arm and said, "Ha ha ha. Don't try anything, heroes. Otherwise, this family will be in tomorrow's obituaries." When Kamui Wood got ready to use his wood to try to restrain the bad guy, he growled, "Damn this villain. There has to be something we can do, until. Ha ha ha. Don't be afraid." Why? All of a sudden, everyone heard something fast coming up behind the bad guy. It hit him from behind and knocked him out, saving the family. "Because I was walking by on my way to work this morning." The crowd cheered as the #1 hero stood tall and wan. "I'm glad he helped us, but," Mount Lady and Kamui Wood said as they saw a lot of people swarming around the pro hero. Kamui said, "He's going to put us out of work," as the police arrested the bad guy. The officer bowed to the pro hero and said, "Thank you for your help, All Might." As All Might saluted, all in a day's work, he heard the sound of a car going too fast, so he jumped away. He saw something as he flew away, though. He realized that he wasn't moving as quickly as he used to and said, "I'm getting slower. I knew I would start losing my power after giving one for all to young Midoriya, but I'm shocked that it's only begun now. Maybe the spider that bit him caused a delay in my reaction to Midoriya's, as well as a hidden interference because of the strange origins of his spider powers. It's scary, but it's also kind of a blessing. It doesn't matter what. All I know is that if I keep pushing myself like this, my time limit will get shorter and shorter." Because of the sludge incident, the raid on Chisaki's hideout went much better than planned. Even though he got away, All Might thought to himself as he pulled over the speeding car. He hasn't done anything about young Eri yet, and we still don't know why he wants her or what she has that he wants. We're letting her be a normal kid for now and giving her the family she's been missing for a long time. He'll go after her, but not while I'm around. This makes me afraid that when my time is up, he'll come for her and Midoriya will have to face him by herself." As he ran off, he heard of another problem. But Midoriya has shown that he is a good vessel, and his spider powers have given him a lot more control over One for All than I thought he would have. He smiled a little as he saved the day again. "I'm sure he'll stop Kai Chisaki, protect his little sister, and become the hero I know he can become. I hope I live long enough to see the man he turns into." 12 hours 0 minutes and 50 seconds p.m. UA Class 1A in high school. Aizawa stood in front of the classroom and wrote down what the class was going to do that day. "Today's class will be a little different from usual. Instead of one teacher, you're going to have 3 supervising you today. Myself, another and All Might," Aizawa said as Izuku raised his eyebrows. This made Bakugo angry, so he asked, "Sir, does this have anything to do with Kachan and me?" "No, but due to the break-in yesterday, the principal wants to take extra precautions. It's nothing to worry about, and having 3 heroes from different aspects of the heroics course might allow some insight for the upcoming event," Aizawa said as Izuku sighed a bit. Zero asked Aizawa, "Sir, what are we going to do today?" as he held up a small card that said, "Rescue." "Today you'll be taking part in a rescue training exercise to teach you all how to do your jobs in a rescue situation," he told the class, which got some people excited. Everyone except Bakugo, that is. He watched the class go by and thought, "No fight, not interested." Suyu was excited about the water parts of class and said, "Finally, I get to show how good I am in the water." Midoriya raised an eyebrow as she looked at him. He asked, "Yeah?" as she put her finger on her chin. "Can spiders swim?" she asked. Izuku had to hold back a laugh as he answered, "Yes." She laughed a little, which surprised him. "Some species can, but I'll remember to bring my floaties," he joked. Aizawa pressed a button and the wall into the hero costumes opened up. "Calm down, I'm not done talking yet," he said. "As I was saying, today we'll be doing rescue exercises, but it will be up to you if you want to use your gym clothes or your hero costumes. Remember, Some of you haven't fully gotten used to your costumes yet, and you may find errors in your designs that will hamper you in the field. Take this as an opportunity to learn about what you can do to improve yourself as well as learn how to rescue others from natural disasters," Aizawa said as the class nodded. Izuku smiled because this was the moment he had been ready for. Getting rid of people, just like All Might, he was really excited. He smiled to himself and said, "Finally, I'm going to learn how to help people." This training is at an off-campus facility, so once you've gotten change, head down to the bus area and await further instructions, Aizawa said as everyone agreed. Not long after that, Izuku and the other kids in Class 1A wore their hero costumes and stood near the bus stops. Except for Izuku, who was wearing his gym uniform, which included web shooters, a utility belt, elbow and knee pads, and white and red gloves. As Ochako walked over to him, she asked, "Deku? Izuku, why are you wearing your gym clothes? Where is your hero costume?" she asked with a laugh. He asked Kachan, "Hey, do you happen to know what happened to my costume? Hey, Kachan, do you happen to know what happened to my costume?" As the boy grunted and turned away. If you really wanted to know what happened to it, you saw that it was completely destroyed. I had to bury dirt on what was left of it. Let us all take a moment to honor Costume Alpha. May his sacrifice not be in vain. As he prayed, he saw a mental image of his Alpha costume giving a thumbs up as it rose into the sky. Ochako copied his move and said, "Oh, thank you. May you find peace." Iida asked, "So then, what are you going to do about a costume?" as he took a break from being a representative to talk to his friends. He held up a black balaclava mask with Ditko brand lenses and said, "I'm working with the support department to make a new costume. But it will take a while, so for today, it's just my gym clothes and a spare mask I was able to upgrade yesterday." Ochako raised an eyebrow at him. "Are you working for the support department?" Ochako asked as he gave a yes. "Yeah, don't ask me why, but I feel like I need to be a part of making my costume. Something about making my own identity, as well as making sure they know exactly what I need if I want to become a hero," he said as Iida and Ochako agreed. "An admirable goal. Once again I have underestimated your resolve to become a hero. Please forgive me," he said with a smile. Izuku said with a laugh, "It's okay, man. You need to calm down." "So, what's it like to work in the support department?" Ochako asked, interested in the other department. Izuku had to stop for a moment as the image of Hatsume's breast pressing against his body came back to him. He turned red. His sudden yell was, "Begone thoughts," and he hit him in the face with his fist. Deku, Midoriya, Ochako and Iida yelled in shock, "Are you okay?" He swayed from side to side and said, "I'm okay. I just needed to reset my brain." His eyes were looking in two different directions, and there was a fist-shaped mark on his face. "What are you, a computer?" They both thought that, though Ochako had been interested in the red blush earlier. That was put aside, though, because Aizawa had heard what they were saying. He said, "Midoriya," as Izuku turned to him and shook his head once more. He walked up to him and said, "Powerloader told me that you were going to work on your costume with them. Admirable goal, but we have the departments separate for a reason. It makes things easier for the students, but ultimately it's your choice whether to work with them. Will you be able to balance your hero studies and work on your costume?" he asked as Izuku agreed. "I learned early on, sensei, that nothing in life is easy, but I should be able to handle it," he told the pro hero. Midoriya had once again impressed him. "Do what you say, Midoriya. Just don't get too tired," he told her as he walked back to the bus stop. They came quickly after Iida blew a whistle. Iida blew into the whistle and said, "All right, everyone, to make this a smooth transition, please form two orderly lines based on your numbers and take seats from the back to the front of the bus." As everyone in the class looked at Izuku, he asked, "Iida's really going for it, huh?" "Yes, in a hypothetical sense, Deku. How would you have set this up?" she asked as he shrugged. "Not like this," he told them as they got on the bus. Iida's seating plan was completely thrown off by the fact that the bus was set up with open seats. The cursed Iida said, "Darn it, foiled again," as Mina rubbed his shoulder. She told him, "You need to chill out," and most of the other students laughed. "Let's just say it. I've been meaning to ask you something about you, Midoriya," Suyu said as Ayaka looked at her. "Yeah, Sui." Then she asked her question. I told you to call me Sue, she said. How exactly does your quirk work? All Might said you have the abilities of a human spider, but that was kind of vague and we had to rush through the rest of the lesson. But you have powers that aren't typical of a usual spider quirk user, not to mention you don't seem to have any physical features that animal-based quirk users like myself have. Why is that? She asked as Izuku flinched a bit. Man. She's direct. I'm going to use the excuse I've been practicing for this moment, he thought. Well, my quirk isn't exactly normal. Instead of growing things like spider appendages or a thorax, I mostly gained the physical abilities of a spider. Strength, climbing and agility are just part of it, he said. So you're like a spider but don't have any of the gross animal parts? Mina asked Suyu before she sent her an apology, which she didn't mind. Exactly, think of me as being a human-sized spider, minus the physical aspects, he told me. So wait, if you have the body of a spider, how do you make webs? Because from what I remember from biology class, spiders make their webs out of their... Kirishima tried not to sound gross. Izuku asked, out of their butts? Kirishima agreed. Thank goodness I didn't get that part. But I wouldn't be much of a spider if I couldn't make my own webs, so I had to make these puppies to make up for it, he told the class as he showed them his web shooters. It took me months to figure out the right compounds I needed to make the web formula and the components to make the web shooters. You made those yourself? Momo asked as he said yes. She said, that's impressive. You must be very smart to come up with those. He shrugged. Kind of, but I worked hard and did everything I could to make it work. Because I believe that if you set your mind to something, you can do it, he said, and some of his classmates nodded. Izuku's hard work made Kirishima feel strong, and he said, so manly. Plus they can do some cool tricks. He exclaimed as he web shot a string, twisted it into a triangle with his fingers, and swung a small web ball through the triangle. He said, see, it took me a month to get that down, which made the class laugh. Toru yelled from the back seats, I have a question. How are you able to become invisible? My quirk only affects me, and not my clothes, so how are you able to fully turn yourself invisible? She asked me. After finally learning more about his battle with Midoriya in the battle trial, Kaminari asked, on top of that, I heard you were able to absorb my lightning attack. That kind of makes sense to me. Have any of you heard of the Van der Waals force? He asked, getting confused looks from the less smart students right away. These people are Mina, Kaminari, Kirishima, Sato, and Shiro. I've heard about that. It's the attraction and repulsions between atoms, molecules, and surfaces, as well as other intermolecular forces. Scientists have theorized that spiders manipulate this force using electrostatic energy and the tiny hair fibers on their bodies, Momo said as everyone looked at her. Yeah, I think my body can manipulate the Van der Waals force as well, giving me a bit more of an electrical charge using the bioelectricity in my body. This is what I think allows me to bend the light around my body, he said. He told Kaminari, that might also explain why I was able to absorb part of your lightning attack. But it's just a theory, and it still hurt a bit. Smoke came out of Kaminari's head. He rubbed his head and said, I see, cool. Bakugo, on the other hand, was listening but acting like he wasn't interested because he was getting annoyed by Deku's many skills. I have a question too, Tokiyami said. During the battle trial, I noticed that you seemed to be able to guess Bakugo's attack. How did you do that? Izuku nodded and pointed to his head. That is due to a little something I call spider sense. It's like an early warning system in my brain. I'm not 100% sure how it works, but for some reason my body just senses danger to myself and gives me a heads up about it, he said as Bakugo raised a brow. He thought to himself, so that's how he knew I was coming. Damn it. Geez man, super strength, agility, the ability to sense danger, and invisibility. You sound op. I think you'll make a lot of money as a pro with that quirk, Kirishima said as he raised his arm. All I can do is make my body stronger. That's not very flashy, is it? Izuku shook his head. No way. Your powers are awesome too. You're pretty much a spear and shield combo in one. Not to mention, given how hard you can become, you can rescue more people in more hazardous conditions, he said as Kisahima laughed a bit. His arm became less hard. You think so? That's cool, man, but I still wish I had a flashier quirk, he said. With a confident smirk, I say that my naval laser is the perfect mix of style and power, It is truly magnificent. Aoyama turned pale and gave the pink-skinned girl a soft glare. But it doesn't help if you blow out your stomach, right? Mina asked. But if we're talking pro-hero quirks, then Bakugo and Todoroki would be at the top of the list. Explosion, plus fire and ice powers are both flashy and practical, Kirishima said as Bakugo groaned. Since Bakugo is always mad, he'll never be liked, Tsuyu said as Bakugo got a tick on the forehead. He yelled, "What did you say, frog bitch?" as she pointed at him. Even though he was angry, she said, "See what I mean?" He also showed how careless he is by putting his teammate in harm's way during the battle trial. Not very heroic, she said as Bakugo growled in anger. She's got a point, man. We've only known you for almost a week now, and already we can tell you have the personality of crap mixed with flaming garbage, Kaminari said as Bakugo got angry. While Kaminari jerked, he yelled, "Well, at least I don't end up useless when my quirk short-circuits my brain." Jiro leaned back from Bakugo and laughed as she remembered Kaminari's really stupid face. "He does have a point, you need to work on that," she said. "Hey, that's not cool," he moaned, and Izuku laughed to himself. He thought, "This is funny, finally Bakugo is being picked on. Shame I can't enjoy it." He knew what it was like to be picked on and wouldn't want anyone else to go through that. What did Izuku think? Even if it's Bakugo. The bus driver yelled, "Okay, kids, we're here," as he pulled up. He said, "Have a safe day," as everyone got off the bus. Izuku looked at the bus driver with surprise in his eyes. He asked the old man with the old sunglasses, "Wait, weren't you the janitor from yesterday?" The old man just smiled. Izuku shrugged and got off the bus. "I can have 2 jobs, now go out there and be a hero, true believer," he told her. He told them as they soon stood outside a big dome-shaped building. What a strange but very nice man. Izuku and the others looked at the dome and said, "Whoa. Welcome everyone, I've been waiting for you," a resounding voice said. As everyone looked, they saw a hero wearing what looked like a puffy spacesuit, yellow sneakers, a black helmet that looked like a dome, and 2 white eyes. In his nerd mode, Izuku said, "Whoa, it's the space hero. 13, the brave pro-hero who saved people from multiple disasters around the world. So cool." Ochako gave him a happy nod. She pointed to the building and said, 13 is my favorite hero. Please follow me. I can't wait to show you what's inside, 13 told the students as she led them into the building. As soon as the students walked in, they saw a big room that looked like a theme park, with different disasters happening in different areas. Some parts looked like they were going to avalanche, others were completely flooded, and still others were inside smaller domes with the words, "Fire," or "Storm," painted on them. Kirishima said, "Holy cow. It almost looks like the Universal Studios Japan theme park," as 13 pointed to the park. "Almost, I designed this practical training facility to replicate some of the most common, yet dangerous disasters that you, young heroes, will have to encounter during your careers. I call it the Unforeseen Simulation Joint." 13 shared, "Welcome to the USJ, she proudly said. "So it's like Universal Studios Japan?" the whole class thought. Aizawa walked up to 13 and asked, "Hey, where's All Might? I thought he was supposed to meet us here. Don't tell me he booked an interview instead?" She whispered to Aizawa, "He did too much hero work on the way to school and used up all his time. He's resting up in the teacher's lounge." She held up 3 fingers. That meant right away to Izuku that All Might had used up his daily 3 hours and could no longer change. This made him sigh a little. He knew that his teacher had to protect innocent lives, but he also had to do his job as a teacher. He let out a sigh and shook his head. He said, "That man is the height of irresponsibility. Anyway," he thought, "oh well, we can get by with just the 2 of us." He turned back to the class. 13 began, "Okay, students, before we start, I'd like to say just one thing. Or 2. Or 3. Or 4. But then she stopped. "We get it," the class thought in their heads before 13 remembered what she had said. "Listen up everyone, I assume most of you are aware of my quirk, black hole. It allows me to create black holes that can suck up anything and reduce it to dust," she said. The class nodded. Izuku said, "Yeah, you've used that to save a lot of people in a number of known events that have been reported since you graduated. He was thinking of all the news stories and articles about 13 and how she used her quirk. True, but the thing is I can also just as easily use it to kill. The same goes for everyone here, she said as everyone looked at her. You must all realize that in our superhuman society, everyone is born with a potential quirk that could be used for either great good or terrible evil. This is why we have to strictly regulate how quirks can be used, to prevent them from being misused. Your powers can be deadly if you lose focus, even if you use them to help someone, which is why we try to teach you to control them here at UA from Aizawa. You learned the potential scale of your quirks. From All Might you learned how dangerous your abilities can be against another person. Izuku nodded and thought back to a time when he broke open a punching bag. He was aware that his power could quickly kill another person if he wasn't careful or kept his emotions in check. That's true even without One for All's extra strength and speed. But here in my class, you will learn how to use your powers to help others in peril. You won't be using your powers to attack enemies on each other, only to help. After all, that is what being a hero is about, helping others. She said as the class cheered, minus Bakugo and the others. Izuku smiled because he felt so lucky to be in the US school. Before his head started to hurt and his spider sense went crazy. He snapped his teeth and shook his head. Gah. The boy with his head held high was looked at by Aizawa and the other person. Midoriya. They asked. He asked, what's wrong? With a grunt, Izuku asked, Deku? As Ochako grabbed his shoulder. He was able to say, my head. It's like a jackhammer is rattling inside my brain. He was about to say, I think it's my spider sense, but I don't see. But he stopped when the lights above flickered and an electric charge went through them. He asked, what the? Before his spider sense pulled him to the courtyard, where he and Aizawa saw a black mist appearing. A tall, thin young man with his hand over his face came out of the black mist and spread it out. Soon, a lot of other men, women, and a man with a very big beak on his face followed him. They all seemed to be planning to do him harm. Kirishima asked, hey, who the hell are these guys? I thought this was a rescue drill. Izuku then put his arm out in front of him. He yelled, everyone get back, as he stood in front of the students. She asked, Sensei, and was a little tense. Deku, what's going on? She asked as Izuku put his mask over his head. He said, my spider sense is going crazy at these guys. If it's going off like this, it means that those aren't normal people. Those are villains. Everyone looked at him with wide eyes, and Aizawa nodded. His words, I'm afraid Midoriya is right, this isn't part of the training, were heard by the class as the black mist changed into a man-like shape. Eraserhead and 13, I was sure that All Might was supposed to be here today, thanks to the teacher's curriculum we procured yesterday. Could they have changed the schedule? Aizawa looked at the mist. The underground hero glared at the group of villains and said, there you are. You were the ones who broke in yesterday. The tall young man asked in a creepy way as he scratched his neck, where is he? Where is All Might? He stared blankly and said, and we went to all this trouble to get together with these friends just for him. The symbol of peace. Can't believe he's not here. He turned his head to the side in a creepy way and looked right at the students with his red eyes. He asked, maybe he'll come if I kill some of these kids. The sound of his voice alarmed them. Everyone had the same thought. What the heck? How are so many bad guys able to get in here? Kirishima asked. Mother asked 13, why aren't the alarms going off? 13 looked around. 13 looked around the dome and said, I don't know. The alarm should have gone off as soon as they walked in. As Todoroki began to figure out what was going on, he asked, is the whole campus under attack, or is this just their one target? If the alarm sensors aren't going off, either one of them must have a quirk that's hiding their presence or they hacked the security system. They picked this remote facility at a time when a class was going to be held for a reason. They must have some kind of goal, but what? He asked. Most of the students looked scared, except for Izuku and Bakugo, who had dealt with bad guys before. 13. Take the students and get out of here. Try and warn the rest of the campus. Wait. But seeing as they managed to get around our sensors, they must have cut off our regular means of communication. Kaminari, try using your quirk as well to contact UA. I'll hold them off, he said as he put on his goggles and began to fight. Izuku told the man with the smirk, but sensei, there are too many of them. Your quirk and fighting style are better for stealth and one-on-one combat. You can't face them all by yourself. After the teen nodded, he told her, I'll be fine. Being a hero is more than just having one trick. As he ran toward the villains, he yelled, 13, I'm counting on you. As one of the bad guys yelled, Ha! Who the hell is that idiot? I thought 13 and All Might were supposed to be here. What does it matter? He'll be Swiss cheese in a minute. Gun squad. The bad guys with gun-based quirks aimed at Aizawa, but no bullets came out of their bodies. What the hell? Where are my guns? They didn't have time to figure it out because Aizawa's capture cloth quickly wrapped around them and slammed them so hard that they passed out. You jerks. Yes, that's Erase Your Head. He only has to look at you to cancel your quirk. One of the bad guys who knew Aizawa yelled as a man with 4 arms and rough skin charged at him with a smirk. I bet you can't get rid of heteromorphic types like mine. I'm going to hit you with my fists. He yelled, but the hero dove and hit him in the face with his fist. Of course not. It only works on emitters and transformation quirks, and your kind of lughead is only dangerous up close. I dodged another villain, wrapped the 4-armed one in his cloth, and then used him as a weapon against 3 others, instantly knocking them out, he said. Because of this, he said, I took steps for big groups like you. His hair fell down again. Ah, Erase Your Head. He's very good at hand-to-hand combat, and those goggles make it hard to see whose quirk he's erasing, which makes working together hard, the young man with the hands-on body thought. How annoying. It stinks when pro heroes live up to the hype, he said while scratching his neck. As he watched, Izuku was amazed by the man's skills and was thinking about how he could use Aizawa's fighting style in his own. It's midday. We need to leave now. I yelled Iida as Izuku came back to himself. All right. His spider sense went off again, this time toward the entrance. Wait, everyone get back. We need to leave this place and call. He was cut off when his sense went off again. He yelled as the mist guy appeared in front of them and stopped them from getting away. The mist that was forming in front of the students and teacher said, I'm sorry, I can't let you go. Damn it. The most dangerous one got by me while I wasn't looking at him. As Aizawa fought off the bad guys, he cursed himself. Greetings students of UA, we are the League of Villains. We apologize for the rude interruption, but we felt we needed to enter UA to kill the symbol of peace, All Might. Izuku's eyes widened. All Might. They're here for All Might. They're after our class because of this. All Might was meant to be here today. I was led to believe he would be here today, but he's not. Was there a last-minute change in the schedule? No matter, my role is simple, stopping you from warning the rest of the campus. 19 was about to use her quirk when Bakugo and Kirishima jumped in front of her. 13 opened one of her finger caps. He yelled, Don't underestimate us, shitty villain, and let out a strong blast. Kirishima punched the mist in the face. Kirishima stood next to Bakugo and asked, Did you think we were going to let you run wild here? 13 yelled as the mist came back together, No, you two, get back. As they moved back a bit, he said, Interesting. It seems that students live up to the expectations of UA Academy. In that case, I shall spread you out among this facility, and let our brothers in arms deal with you. The students were covered in smoke, and the black mist spread out among them. He was able to move Ochako and Sato out of the way, and Mezzo held Mina and Siro down under his body. But the rest of the students were being sucked away as Izuku spread his webs to try to stay on the ground. But the suction was stronger, and he was sucked away with Momo, Jiro, and Kaminari. Izuku rolled and landed in a battle stance on rough terrain in the mountain zone he fought. He already used his spider sense to avoid a villain with arms that looked like blades and then kicked the villain in the face into other villains. He then flipped backwards and landed in a spider pose. He said, Too close, and then dodged again, punching someone in the face. His joke, Anyone teach you guys personal space, came as he continued to fight. He caught a glimpse of Yaoyorozu, Jiro, and Kaminari out of the corner of his eye. Yaoyorozu was making a pull for herself and Jiro a machete, and they were surrounded by bad guys. Yaoyorozu told Midoriya, Stop joking around and come over here. We need your help, Izuku replied. Okay, and he hacked his webs into the stone walls as he walked toward them. As he flipped and kicked another bad guy in the head, his feet hit him right in the face. Yelled, Yaoyorozu, Jiro, Kaminari. Are you guys okay? Yaoyorozu replied, yes. She looked around at all the bad guys and said, we're fine now, but I don't see anyone else. With a nod, Izuku agreed. That mist man must have some kind of warping quirk that sent all of us in different directions. I knew that, too. But if we're still in the USJ, then he must have sent the rest of the class to the other zones, he said as he used his superpowers to fight off the bad guys. Jiro asked, but why are they here? What do they want with our class? As she used her speakers to boost her heartbeat and scare some of the bad guys away. The mist guy had said something about killing All Might, which made Midoriya remember why they were here. We can figure that out later. Right now we need to deal with these guys and regroup at the entrance, he said as she agreed. Hey, hold up. We can't fight all these guys. In case you forgot, Midoriya, I don't have a lot of combat use, and I still can't get a signal out to UA. I can cover my body with electricity, but I can't fully control where my lightning goes if I try to shoot it out. I can't be of use here, he said as Jiro groaned. She yelled at him, you idiot, you're a living taser gun. Or did you forget that part from the battle trial with Uraraka? And kicked him into a bad guy, who was shocked by his lightning. Jiro cringed and shook her head as he said, huh? I'm strong. Don't worry ladies, Midoriya and I got this. Midoriya threw a bad guy into the air and punched him several times before slamming him to the ground with his webs. He then dove to avoid their attacks and held them down with his webs, keeping Jiro and Yaoyorozu safe from other attacks. Jiro said, I think Midoriya has this better than you do. At that moment, Izuku flipped over, kicked a man in the face, and then threw another man into the wall. This is taking too long. We need to take all these guys out at once, Izuku pointed out. Even though he knew he could beat these guys, he couldn't protect the others at the same time. I've got an idea, Midoriya. Just give me a few more minutes, Yaoyorozu said while focusing and keeping the bad guys away. Okay, he said as he web-zipped into the enemy, distracting her while making sure to web up any bad guys who were already down. He fired impact webs at his enemies that stuck them to the walls. He also used his web lines to catch and throw the bad guys around, a lot like Aizawa. Okay, I'm ready, Yaoyorozu said as a big blanket came out from behind her. It takes a little longer to make things this big, but this insulated sheet should work. Kaminari, let all of your lightning loose, she yelled as Kaminari looked to Izuku, who was busy fighting other bad guys and was too far away to hear. But Midoriya, he'll be okay. Remember that lightning doesn't seem to hurt him, Jiro yelled as Midoriya kicked another bad guy in the face. He yelled, she's right, do it, while Kaminari smiled. Okay, then, take this, indiscriminate shock 1.3 million volts. He yelled as a huge electrical blast hit the mountain top and burned almost everyone around it. For some reason, Midoriya noticed that the lightning was behaving strangely around him again. Any surge that came close to him changed course and went into his body, where it seemed to turn neon green. After the explosion was over, Midoriya got up and shook off the electricity that had been running through his body. He then looked at all the bad guys who were lying stunned and unable to do anything. Well, that takes care of them, he told himself as he looked down at his hand in the neon green electricity that was about to fade. He was still a little numb from the blast. He asked himself, there it goes again. What is wrong with me? He heard Yaoyorozu ask, are you okay, Midoriya? As he nodded and didn't look at them. Yeah, I'm fine. The lightning didn't hurt me as much as these guys, so I'm fine. Kaminari will be out of commission, though, so we need to be careful going down the mountain. Sweet All Might, he yelled out of the blue. This was because Yaoyorozu's front part of her costume had been torn open when she made the insulated sheet from her back, so everyone could see her mountains. Yaoyorozu didn't seem to mind, but Jiro looked just as shocked. Izuku quickly turned his head to the side to avoid looking at her. Midoriya, are you okay? Yaoyorozu asked, not sure if the lightning had hurt Midoriya. He screamed, I'm good. Great, never been Bree Peachy. I mean boo, I mean fine. JJ, just cover yourself up. He tried not to look at her. As Jiro turned red and felt a bit envious of the vice reps. Strong body, she asked, what's got him so scared? As Yaoyorozu smiled and turned to face her, she said, I think you should cover up too. Your costume is a mess. It's okay. I can just make another costume, she said as Izuku purged his hard drives with his fist back to his face. Why is this going on again? I've never had this happen before. Spider, you idiot. Did it make me a breast magnet too? He yelled to himself in his head. Kaminari said, "Wait, carrot," as he looked around aimlessly. Jiro sighed with relief when he saw that Yaoyorozu had fixed Midoriya's costume. Okay, everything is fine now, he said. All right, now we can focus on getting down the... He stopped suddenly as his spider sense went off. He slowly looked back at her while his lenses focused in on her like he was glaring. Jiro asked, "Midoriya?" As he sped past them, slammed his fist into the ground, and then pulled out a bad guy with a skull on his face. He moaned, "But, how?" as Izuku smiled behind his mask. He said, "Let's just say, scum like you can't sneak up on me," and then slammed his fist into his face, knocking him out. He then webbed him and the other criminals up. Jiro tapped the man on the head with her boot and said, "Damn, that was a close one. Who would have thought one of them would be hiding underground? Thanks for that, Midoriya." "No problem, but for now, let's focus on getting out of here. My spider sense should warn us of danger, but it's important we get out of here now," he said as Yaoyorozu agreed. "Yes, but what about the others? We're safe for now, but I don't know what kind of danger they're in," she said as Izuku nodded and looked up at the mountain's highest peak. As he jumped to the top of the peak and looked around the USJ, he said, "Wait here." He then tapped the side of his mask, and his lenses focused. "Okay, let's see if the zoom-in upgrades I worked on yesterday do their thing." He looked around and saw explosions coming from the collapse zone right away. That told him where Bakugo was. He knew where Todoroki was because ice was forming in the landslide zone, and he could see that things were going on around the boat in the shipwreck zone. When he zoomed in, he saw that Tsuyu and Mineta were surrounded by bad guys in the water, but they didn't look like they were attacking the boat yet. "I can see some activities at the collapse, landslide, the entrance, and shipwreck zones. Aizawa-sensei is holding them off, but he's still outnumbered and I can see Mineta and Asui at the shipwreck zone," Yaoyorozu said. Yaoyorozu asked, "Where do you think we should go?" Izuku thought about it and said, "I think we should help Mineta and Asui, but I don't know about the other areas. Jiro, can you listen to the students in the rest of this facility? Maybe we can get a better idea of where we are most needed." Jiro agreed and plugged her headphones into the ground to listen. "Okay. Koda and Tokiyami are in the downpour zone, but the rain there is making it hard to pinpoint them. And I think I hear Kirishima in the fire zone. It's strange, but I can't hear where Aoyama is," she said as Izuku raised his eyebrows. He asked her, "Do you think he's in the downpour zone with Fumikage and Koda?" She let him know she didn't know. "Maybe, it is really loud in there, so it's possible he was sent further inward and is remaining hidden. In any case, it seems most of the class is okay," she said as Izuku agreed. "Okay, let's go to the shipwreck zone to help Asui and Mineta. I can get there faster, but it will be hard to deal with bad guys here," he told Kaminari, who was clearly out of his mind. "Too bad Kaminari isn't available right now. We could just throw him into the water and electrify most of them, assuming the water is salty enough," he said before Momo got a thought. Izuku turned away as she began to pull her top open even more. "I might be able to make something that can help," she said. When Izuku turned around, he saw what looked like a modified extra-large speaker. "Can you carry it to the edge of the shipwreck zone?" she asked, her breathing heavy. "I see," Izuku said while looking at the device. "You made an underwater speaker that Jiro can use to incapacitate the villains without risk of hurting Asui or Mineta. Sound waves do travel faster and further underwater. And with Jiro's abilities, it should knock out the bad guys quickly. That is very clever, and I will only have to bring it and Jiro to a remote distance from the danger. While we help out Asui and Mineta, you can carry Kaminari to the entrance at a slow pace that would allow you both to recover by the time you regroup with the others," he summarized as she nodded. He nodded and held out an energy bar. "Yes, that's the idea. Does anyone have a snack to spare? My body isn't used to making so many things at once, and it could help me recover," she asked. He told her, "I usually keep things like this on hand just in case." She thanked him and nodded. He asked her, "Jiro-san, how far can you stretch your earphones?" as she moved them. "A few meters, at least to reach the speaker," she said, and Izuku agreed. Okay, Jiro, I think the only way we can get there is if you hold on to my back. Are you okay with heights? He asked, but she shook her head. He nodded, and she grabbed his back and wrapped her arms around his neck. Nah, I should be fine, she said. Izuku was still nervous about having a girl on his back, but he put that aside to focus on the task at hand. He bent down and grabbed the modified speaker. To improve his jump, he subtly channels One for All at 10% into his legs. While he jumped high into the air and yelled, "Hang on," he could feel Jiro tighten her grip on his neck. He fired a web line up to the ceiling and hung there for a moment. He asked, "Are you okay?" And she said yes. "Why yeah, just a little surprised," she said with a careful look down. She held on tighter and said, "I may have stretched the truth a bit about heights." As she felt his muscles, she blushed. He said, "Sorry, but we need to focus on the task at hand. That slide will set off the speaker and let us stay on the rocks without being seen. Hold on, we need to circle so they don't see us and go down the slide." She nodded, and he began swinging his arm. Even though it wasn't easy, Izuku had practiced a lot before. Jiro swung around the dome with him, and he looked down at the ground from his neck. She was scared and excited at the same time when she saw everything from so high up, but she knew she had to save her classmates first. Izuku and Jiro looked down the slide as they quickly got to the top of the slide. "Ready?" he asked, and she said yes. She said, "Yeah, it's not the first time I've been down a slide," as they both jumped on it. They really wanted to scream with joy, but they had to hold back because there were rocks around the inside. Midoriya's spider sense and a few well-placed web shots were able to avoid everything. Together with Jiro, Izuku quickly reached the end of the slide. They hid behind one of the rocks nearby. They could see the ship not far away, and the villains kept yelling at them, so it looked like they were getting angry. "We don't have much time left. Are you ready?" Jiro said yes, and Izuku slowly let the speaker fall into the water. It moved down the rest of the ramp with the help of a string of webbing. The speaker soon went under the water, and Jiro stuck her earphones out and into the speaker. Jiro focused her heartbeat through her jacks, amplified it to the nth degree, and then blasted it through the underwater speaker. "Hope these guys brought their floaties, because this one's going to send waves." While this was going on, Tsuyu and Mineta were stuck on top of the cruise ship and could see all the bad guys below. Mineta screamed, "WWW, we're going to die. I can't believe this is happening. I never agreed to this," as he cried hard tears. "Calm down, Mineta. We just need to make a plan. Did you sign up at UA to become a hero?" she asked, her face blank as Mineta kept freaking out. "Shut up. It's perfectly normal to be freaking out like this. This is way too much for US. We only just graduated from middle school and we started here less than a week ago. And now suddenly we have to fight for our lives. This is bullshit. I never wanted this. I wanted to be super popular and get all the babes. I never even got to touch Yaoyorozu's big boobs before I died." Tsuyu shook her head in disbelief. She asked herself, why couldn't I get Midoriya or Todoroki? As the villains got mad. They started screaming as loud vibrations started to move through the water. "That's it, I've had enough waiting. Time to cut these little heroes down to see awe." It was much faster for the sound to travel through water than through air. Jiro's boosted heartbeat plus water and Yaoyorozu's modified speaker made one huge sound wave. What the hell is awe? Some of them tried to scream, but the shaking was too much for them, and they passed out, floating the water like a bunch of dead fish. What the hell? Are they dead?" Mineta asked as he and Tsuyu looked at all the bad guys who were out cold. It was Izuku and Jiro coming at them, and Midoriya landed on the ship's wall with Jiro's arms around his neck. "No, but they're going to have one heck of a headache," they heard. Izuku joked as he put Jiro down on the deck with the changed speaker. "Hello. On behalf of UA Cruise Lines, we'd like to apologize for any trouble we've caused and hope you travel with us again." "Midoriya! Jiro!" Mineta yelled as he broke down in tears and put his arms around Jiro. When Jiro got angry, she stuck her earphone jack into his head and shocked him. He yelled, "Thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't even care if your breasts are too small or if you look like a guy. You are my hero." He twitched and fell to the floor. She yelled, "What the fuck did you just say about my breasts and looks? Are you okay, Asui?" Izuku asked, and she said yes. Izuku raised an eyebrow under his mask and said, "Thanks for coming to save us, Ribbit. And I told you to call me Sue." He asked, "Really?" And she said, "Yes." He looked down at Mineta, who was shaking, and said, "Okay, Sue. Glad to see you two are okay." "Well, mostly okay," he said, and she agreed. She spoke to the bad guys as she looked around. "It's a good thing you came by. I don't think we would have been able to fight them off." The girl asked Izuku, "How did you kill all the villains at once?" As he pointed to Jiro. He pointed at the speaker and said, "Yaoyorozu made Jiro this special waterproof speaker that amplifies her quirk. Sound travels faster in water, so he used that to knock them out. Even the ones that might have been hiding under couldn't avoid it," Jiro said as she held up one of her jacks. Izuku said yes, and she asked, "Yaoyorozu? Does that mean you were transported with her and Jiro together?" "Kaminari as well, but we managed to deal with the villains in the mountain area. They're safe right now and headed back to the entrance. But we spotted you guys from up there and figured it was best to help you guys out, seeing as you didn't have a lot of combat-oriented quirks with you. No offense," he said politely. "None taken. I'm fast underwater, but I doubt even I could have fought them all off by myself. And Mineta wasn't exactly in the right state of mind to help anyway." "Ribbit," Suyu said as Mineta wept. Mineta bragged about his sticky balls and said, "Hey, I was scared too. Sorry I don't have an awesome quirk like you guys. These are only useful for sticking to things and bouncing off of them. They're so stupid," he said as Izuku shook his head. His words, "No, actually that could be useful," made Mineta blink. "My webs won't work well in water, so I can't restrain these guys. But your quirk can. If you can get these guys bunched up, then we can make sure they won't escape or assault us once they wake up. Can you do that?" he asked as Mineta suddenly felt more reassured. He said, "Of course, leave it to me," and threw his balls into the water, where they grouped up with the bad guys. "While you guys deal with that, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can help out with others. Do you think you can make it to the shore without me?" he asked as Suyu and Jiro agreed. As she pointed to the small life raft, she said, "Don't worry about us, Midoriya. We can get back to the shore using that." He assured him, "And if they wake up again, I can blast them with the speaker. But by then, the teachers should be here. Go help the others," and he nodded. He climbed back up, jumped into the air, and started to swing toward the entrance. "Okay, stay safe," he said. "You know, despite his sad face, he's pretty reliable, huh?" Suyu asked, and Jiro agreed. Izuku was able to swing over the courtyard and watch what was going on. He could tell that the bad guys were getting to Aizawa, but she seemed to have it under control. 13 was quickly taken down while she was on the other end at the entrance. She was caught in her quirk. "Damn it. I'm not going to be on time." He thought this as he swung toward them. Then, though, his spider sense went off the rails and his eyes got bigger as he looked back at the courtyard. He turned around and said, "Oh no," before in the courtyard. Aizawa did everything he could to keep his students safe and keep the bad guys away. He didn't know what happened to the people who were teleported, but he hoped they were safe from these plain old wannabes. What that cloud guy said was true was all he knew. "That can wait. I need to deal with these guys first and then find my students." As he continued to fight the bad guys, Aizawa thought to himself, hopefully one of them got away and went back to warn the faculty. He quickly turned his attention to the man who was rushing him and had his hands all over him. He said, 23 seconds, and then he moved closer, even as Aizawa threw his capture cloth at him. 20 seconds, 17 seconds. "What's going on? I thought that before I snatched up and went for an elbow to the gut," Aizawa said. But by that time, his quirk had reached its limit and stopped working. The man grabbed Aizawa's elbow and said, "It was hard to figure out at first. Most of the time when you're jumping around. But sometimes when your hair falls down, your quirk isn't active," he said as Aizawa suddenly felt pain in his elbow and the whole thing started to fall apart. The man said in a crazy voice, "Don't bite off more than you can chew, Eraserhead," before Aizawa hit him in the face and got away. "Damn it. This guy is great. It broke my elbow, no matter what his quirk is. That's it," he told himself as he jumped back and avoided more bad guys. "You talk like a gamer," Aizawa said to buy time for his quirk to return. "Are you the raid boss or something?" You could say that, the young man said with a laugh. But what is a raid boss, without his tank? Aizawa only had a split second to see the huge monster with its brain sticking out of its body move up next to him. He tried to get away from the huge monster, but it was much faster than Aizawa and was able to grab his broken arm, which separated the bone in half. Aizawa was trying to use his quirk to get rid of the monsters when he heard him. Nomu. Meet Aizawa. Aizawa. Meet Nomu. An artificial human created with enhanced strength with one purpose and one purpose only. To be the final boss and the essential, anti-all might, to the self-righteous symbol of peace. But nothing took place. This strength isn't a quirk, and it's pretty close to All Might's level. But Nomu was getting stronger, Aizawa thought as he broke the man's arm even more. It looked like, game over, for you, the man said as the bird-faced monster grabbed Aizawa and got ready to do unbelievably bad things to the hero. Had it not been for a sudden glob of web that hit the monster in the eyes and made it blind. As the webs blocked its view, the muscle bond beast let go of Aizawa's other broken arm and roared in anger. After the beast let go of the pro-hero's broken arm, he jumped back. Izuku yelled, "For!" as he swung in and put both feet on Nomu's stomach. Nomu was able to throw Aizawa and a bunch of villains away with his fast swing, momentum, spider-enhanced leg strength, and a burst of 15% one for all. To his surprise, though, the monster didn't seem to be hurt or hurting anything. He wasn't going to risk anything, though, so he fired several impact webs at the beast and pinned it down. The boy screamed, "What?" before a big chunk of impact web hit him and pinned him to the wall next to them. He yelled, "Who the hell are you?" when Izuku landed next to Aizawa. "Of course, player number 2, he joked, then he turned to Aizawa and grimaced. "Oh my god, that looks bad. Are you okay?" Izuku asked as he looked at the man's broken arms. He held his broken arm and asked, Midoriya, why are you here? What about the others?" In short, he said, "I fought bad guys, beat them, and made sure my classmates were safe. I was going to go to the entrance to help, but then my spider sense went crazy at Big Bird there." He pointed to Nomu, who was still on the ground with his webs around him. "I don't know what the hell he is, but whatever he is, it's dangerous," he said as Aizawa wrapped his broken arm in a piece of his scarf. "He's too strong. I almost broke my other arm if you hadn't stopped me. That being said, stay out of this," Aizawa said through pain. Izuku shook his head and said, "I told you not to do anything risky or I'd kick you out. Now get out of here." "Sorry, sensei, but my body can't stop moving. And you look like you need all the help you can get," he said as Aizawa looked at the boy and grunted. "We'll talk about this later," he said as he and Midoriya turned back to Nomu. The animal roared as it slowly tore the web off its body. With his angry eyes, the handman, who seemed to be the leader of the villains, broke the webs apart as he glared at the teen in the mask. "The person with the hands can break down things, but what's up with this Birdman? Is he just strong?" Izuku asked as he looked at both of them. After hearing how the raid boss talked about the monster, he thought it must be more than just strong because of how it made him feel when he kicked it. Izuku rarely used that much force, but when he did, there was always a shockwave coming from him. This time, though, there was none. That shock damage couldn't be fixed by strength alone. It had to be some kind of shock absorption or density shifting. "I don't know, it's not a quirk, otherwise mine would have negated it. What he has is pure strength, almost the same as All Might's. That thing is too strong for either of us," Aizawa thought as Izuku nodded. Izuku thought to himself as he charged one for all, if it's as strong as All Might, then we're in big trouble. I have to use one for all to make myself stronger. I might even have to go to 20%. One for all. 20%. He told himself in his mind as his body lit up with green lightning. He felt stronger and was ready to fight until the mist guys appeared behind, handies, as he turned to face them. "Shigaraki Tamura," the black mist said all of a sudden as it came back together. "We have a problem. One of the students managed to slip past me." The hand guy, who was now called Tamura, stared at the mist man for a while before he got really twitchy and began scratching his neck really hard while grunting in anger. "Kurogiri, you idiot, what good is a portal if he can't keep a few damn kids from getting away?" he yelled in rage. "Great. This was all for nothing. We can't fight All Might and the whole UA staff. Yet, Tamura thought as he twitched in anger. We have no choice but to pull back. But first, Nomu, crush that bug, he said. Nomu growled through its teeth, flexed its muscles, and then stomped on the ground. Izuku's spider sense went crazy at this point, and his body took over. He pushed Aizawa out of the way. He yelled, "Watch out," as he stepped back from the fist. The shockwave was so strong that it tore part of the ground up, saving both of their lives. He could only yell, "Holy shit. That was close yip," as Nomu threw another attack at him even faster than the first one. Izuku was able to grab the fist this time, even though the force made his legs buckle. He used all of his strength to avoid being flattened by the monster. He had to use both hands to stop the monster's crazy strength, which made the ground shake. Izuku let out a gasp when he felt the pain in his arms and legs from the blow. It was "Gah" for Izuku when Aizawa looked at him. Before he could say, "Midoriya," he felt Tamura rush at him with a crazy look in his eye. "We're not done yet, Eraserhead," he yelled as he hit the man with his quirk to try to break him down. He yelled, "Not going to happen," because he knew they were going to hit him. As he did this, the other bad guys charged at him, hoping to beat the hurt and worn-out hero. At the same time, Izuku was doing everything he could to stop Nomu, even though his muscles were getting bigger from fighting the monster's strength. "Jesus. What do you bench?" Izuku joked before his spider sense went off again. Nomu's other first attack would have hit Izuku in the head if he hadn't been able to jump back so quickly. As he glared at Nomu, though, the wind force tore and cracked open one of them. Izuku yelled, "Whoa! You are insanely strong," as Nomu raised its fist and roared at the spider hero. It turns out Aizawa wasn't joking. "This thing is insanely strong. I'd be a pancake if I wasn't using one for all. That being said, I can't wait any longer," he thought to himself as he jumped and avoided its attacks. Then he tried to hit Nomu in the face with his fist while it was charged with spider strength +1 for all. The creature didn't react to the blow, though. Nomu swiped at him again, but this time she hit nothing but air, and Izuku jumped back. "There it is again," he thought. "It looks like this thing doesn't mind what I throw at it. He must have some kind of quirk that lets him take in kinetic energy, but does it completely cancel it out or just soak it up?" The monster was about to hit Izuku with another combo, and he tried to make sense of it. He considered attaching Shigaraki's hand to the monster's foot with a web and swinging away with Aizawa, but both bad guys were moving too quickly for him to do it right. He wouldn't be able to run away now anyway because the fight would move to the front door, where most of his classmates should be by now. Being aware of this meant that Izuku had to keep dodging until help arrived. "Nomu!" Shigaraki yelled in anger as he watched Izuku avoid more and more attacks. "Go to the entrance and kill some kids. If that green kid can avoid attacks so well when he's trying to protect himself, then maybe he can avoid attacks while trying to protect others too. What a sad trait the so-called heroes have." As a sign of agreement, Nomu let out a roar and charged at the door. Izuku yelled, "No," as he turned Nomu over on its back and locked its hands in his while 20% of 1 for all charged every muscle in his body. The charge from Nomu and the use of his given quirk hurt and strained the teen's body, but he kept pushing back as his feet dragged on the concrete, destroying everything in their path. Nomu was at the top of the stairs in a flash and was about to kill the students. Izuku screamed, "I won't let you hurt them," as he held on even though he could feel his arms breaking. Nomu kept moving forward, getting closer and closer to the other people. He could feel the fear behind him as they were about to die a painful and bloody death. For a moment, he saw the same scared look on Eri's face that he had seen years before, and it lit a spark in him. "I said." The green lightning that was swirling around him started to behave strangely. It got brighter and moved around more randomly. "I won't let you." Izuku's arms started to glow on the inside as his nervous system lit up his skin and costume, getting brighter and stronger. Izuku threw his fist at the beast's face and yelled, "Hurt them!" A loud whine, like a defibrillator charging, could be heard. It looked like the punch didn't do anything, it was all for nothing. Up until Nomu's muscles locked up and terrible pain shot through its body, from its head to its toes. A big bolt of green lightning went off all around Nomu, which screamed in pain. Its body was burned and scarred by the lightning, and its scream could be heard all over the USJ. The electric shock was so strong that the inside of the creature's nervous system could be seen to be glowing. Then, the Nomu was thrown straight off the stairs, like a ball from a cannon. It flew high above the group of bad guys and crashed into the middle of the big water fountain. Everyone at the entrance, including Aizawa, Shigaraki, and a few bad guys on the ground, saw green lightning come from the student dressed as a spider. The monster he was holding back lay on the broken fountain with burn marks showing up on some of its black skin. "What the?" Aizawa asked as he and everyone else turned around to see Izuku standing there with green lightning all over him. "Nomu?" Tamura asked as he quickly looked up the stairs at Izuku, who was wobbling because he was in so much pain. He asked between breaths as he fell to one knee, "Is that all you got?" He was able to say, "Ow, that was a rib," as he carefully held his ribs. Uraraka asked Deku, "Are you okay?" She wanted to get close to him but was afraid of the lightning around him. "I'm okay," he told her as he glared at Nomu, which was shaking on the ground. He looked at his hands and saw that they were still glowing with green electricity. His nerves were also glowing through his skin. He told himself, "Well, this is new." As the Nomu tried to raise its hand, it fell back down. Green lightning was still going through its body. The thing could barely move a finger because its muscles were spazzing out of control. What the hell did that jerk do to my Nomu?" Tamura yelled as Kurogiri looked at the thing and directed his mist at the Nomu, who was lying down. Gah! But when the mist got close, the green lightning struck the Kurogiri's mist and made the ghostly guards back off. Some parts of the mist that touched the lightning were scattered and moving away from him. This showed a pale hand under his misty body as his yellow eyes grew bigger. "That lightning isn't natural. I can't get close to Nomu because it can destroy part of my form," Kurogiri said as his black mist slowly came back to life. He looked between his fallen Nomu and the child who was in his way and his hand twitched with anger. He had a crazy look in his eye. He was so angry that his red eyes twitched as he flexed his hands. He yelled at the kid as he ran up the stairs, "You cheated! Your strength shouldn't be enough to hurt Nomu." Izuku stepped between Ochako and Tamura because the bad guy was only a few feet away. But before he could reach him, the facility's doors slammed open, and everyone turned to see what gave everyone hope and scared the bad guys. The bad guys were scared, but All Might yelled, "Don't be scared. Why? I am here." As Kurogiri swarmed behind Tamura, yelling, "All Might," and growling in anger, Tamura was caught off guard. "Tamura, we lost our main weapon and are now outgunned. We need to leave," he yelled as Tamura growled and Kurogiri warped around him. He glared at the masked hero, whose green eyes could be seen through the broken lens of his mask, and yelled, "This isn't over, Bug Boy. I will make you pay," he yelled before vanishing. The other bad guys yelled, "Wait," before Tamura and Kurogiri vanished. "They left us. The bastards left us." "Yes, they did. And do you know what that means?" All Might asked the scared shapes with a grin. All Might snapped his fingers and said, "Now would be a great time to give up, don't you agree?" "We give up," they all said, putting up their hands. Soon after, the rest of the faculty and the police showed up and began rounding up the would-be bad guys. This helps keep the downed Nomu in place. At this point, it had pretty much lost consciousness since its master wasn't there to guide it. Izuku let out a sigh of relief and slouched down on his behind. The green lightning stopped flashing around him, so he stopped calling on One for All. As Izuku looked up at All Might, he said, "That was a close one. Took you long enough," he joked, and his mentor nodded. "I'm sorry, young Midoriya, I got a little behind. But don't worry, the cavalry is here," All Might said as the teachers began to round up the bad guys. "How about you? Are you okay?" he asked. Izuku grunted in pain but said yes. "Just a rib or two, I'll be fine. But I need to talk to you later, something strange happened, and I need your help," he told his mentor in code as the man nodded. "I get it. Young Uraraka, please help young Midoriya to the entrance. There should be a doctor there who can help," he said. Ochako nodded and helped him get up. She asked, "Are you okay, Deku?" "That was really brave of you," as Izuku painfully shrugged his shoulders. He smiled at her and said, "Just doing what I thought was right." She felt much safer. "Damn it!" they yelled as Bakugo, Kirishima, Toru, and Todoroki rushed to the scene. He yelled, "The fighting is over, fuck," because he wasn't able to fight any more bad guys. I told him, "Hey, man, chill out. This is good because it means no one else will get hurt." It was, "Shut it, broomhead. Fuck," he yelled, kicking a stone away. "And who the heck took out Bird Face there?" he asked, looking at the Nomu that had fallen while Cementos held it up with his concrete. "That was thanks to Midoriya. We don't know how he did it, but he was able to keep that thing from hurting any of the students and push it down the stairs before we got there. He used some kind of green lightning to stop it from moving. It was pretty cool," Mezzo Shoji said as he and the other students were led to the door. As Bakugo looked at the downed Nomu, he yelled, "Huh? Deku took out that thing." He was both angry and shocked. He only said, "TCH, I could have taken that thing down," as he walked away from the others. At the same time, Todoroki looked over at the Nomu, which was lying on the ground and couldn't move because of Cementos's concrete. But as he looked at the creature, he saw that it had been burned by what looked like static electricity, which he was sure Midoriya couldn't do. He questioned the bad guys in his sector to find out how they planned to defeat All Might and learned that they had a creature that was made to be as strong as All Might at full power. Still, if what the others said was true, it meant that Midoriya had beaten a creature that was made to be as strong as All Might. As the medics and recovery girl looked over at Midoriya, he narrowed his heterochromic eyes on the teen. He clenched his fist and said, "Midoriya, it looks like you will no longer only be trying to beat All Might. He will also have to beat Midoriya." Outside of the USJ building while Deku was being checked out by doctors, the other students gathered near the ambulances and police officers and told the officers what had happened. Present Mike and Ochako were standing next to Deku. As Izuku sat on a stretcher and the medic cleaned the cut under his eye from where his lens broke, he said, "Ow. Damn, that hurts." As she put rubbing alcohol on his cut, she said, "We should keep it from getting infected. I'm sorry for the pain ahead of time." Another person was checking on his broken bones. One of the medics used her X-ray quirk to tell the person, "You have some broken ribs and stress fractures in your arms and legs. You'll need proper medical care, which I've been told UA can give you," she said, and Present Mike nodded. "Don't you threaten, little listener. Once Recovery Girl gets a hold of you, you'll be good as new, yeah," he said loudly. He spoke so loudly that everyone had to step back. Izuku said, glad he wasn't using his quirk, as Present Mike walked over to the police. Ochako stood next to Izuku. "Deku, are you going to be okay?" Ochako asked when she saw that Izuku was hurt. The Spider-Man hero nodded and held his ribs while turning his right arm around. "I will be fine. Remember what I told you back at the entrance exam? I have a healing factor, so combine that with Recovery Girl's quirk, I should be fine," he said as Ochako looked at him. She asked him with a nervous shrug, "Did you know that you could do that lightning thing that killed that monster?" "Well, not really, no, to be honest, I didn't know I could do that until I did it. Honestly, I was hoping to block its next attack and then." "Deku. That was so careless. You could have been killed," she yelled out of the blue, making the boy blink. He tried to explain, "Whoa, geez, I'm sorry, but I didn't have much of a choice. That thing was going to hurt everyone and I had to stop it, or you'd all have been killed." But the girl kept her intense look on him. She yelled at him, "But you could have died. I have a healing factor. It doesn't matter what happens to me. I can bounce back from it." "But not from everything," she yelled. "Everyone has a limit to their quirks. Who's to say that thing wouldn't have gone beyond yours?" Izuku clenched his teeth at that point. "Didn't you also say that you have a sister and a mother?" she added. "How would they have felt if you died today? I have seen enough families losing their loved ones at construction sites to know what it feels like, and I don't want your family to lose you." "You've never even met them," she yelled at him. "I don't need to meet them to know that they love you." The young hero turned away. Izuku glared back at her and said, "I'm not sorry for saving you." She puffed out her cheeks and crossed her arms. He sighed as he looked at her and said, "But..." He rubbed his messy hair with one hand and said, "I guess I get your point." He said, "I'm sorry I made you worry. I'll try to be more careful next time." She took off her glare and nodded. She pushed him back down on the gurney and said, "Okay." It was Izuku who nodded. "Now lie still and let the doctors do what they do," she said. Izuku didn't mind that she didn't know how to deliver that line, as long as she showed that she cared. Mina stayed out of the way and watched the whole conversation. She had a strong desire to pair them up. She told herself, "I smell a ship," and Jiro shook her head. Jiro pointed her ear jacks at the two of them and said, "I can hear what they're saying, and I can tell you that they better get rid of that baggage first if they want to get serious." All Might, who had lost weight and was out of sight, was with Detective Tsukachi as they watched over Nomu, who was being held in heavy chains. Yagi looked at the creature and said, This is not good. This thing was supposed to be made to match me at my full strength," he said, and Tsukachi nodded. "That's what we have so far. Based on the damage it's done so far, we're lucky no one was killed. It's a good thing Midoriya was able to immobilize it, or we'd be calling for body bags instead of paramedics," Tsukachi said as the beast lay still, its chest moving so little that it looked like it was dead. "I was unaware he could stun his opponents. So was I, I will have to talk to him about it, but it seems that One for All may have given his quirk abilities that neither of us had before. Could it be an effect of his quirk's unnatural origins, or is there another factor we aren't seeing?" All Might thought as he viewed the thing. While All Might nodded and looked at Nomu with a dark thought going through his mind, Tsukachi said, "We'll find out more once we get a good look at this thing. For now, I think it's best you get some rest. You've had a busy day. This useful work. Could it be?" At the same time, in Kamino Ward, an abandoned bar. A swirling black portal appeared in a bar that was empty. As Tamura walked out of the portal, he tore his mask off and slammed it on the counter with a mad look on his face. Tomas yelled, "Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! That damn bug! He had to ruin everything," as he crushed a bar stool with his grip. "Tamura, please stay calm. We can't have you destroying our hideout," Kurogiri said as he stood up. He was wearing a suit that looked very nice and had a metal brace around his neck. "We didn't expect this, but there's no need for you to lose it," he told her as Tamura looked up at the living mist. "Shut it. That insect totally cheated. All Might would have been minced meat if he hadn't pulled out that cheat code. You should have let me." A dark and scary voice spoke from the monitor. "That's enough, Tamura." They both looked at the screen in shock. "Now, calmly explain what happened. I can already guess you were defeated, but that is not the reason for your anger. Tell me, what has made you so upset?" "Your damn Nomu wasn't strong enough. He lost so easily and the heroes beat us." "Well, I was merely optimistic that All Might had gotten weaker and that Nomu could've. But that's just it, Sensei. Nomu wasn't even beaten by All Might. He was beaten by a damn kid." Tamura was furious. "Impossible," said a second voice on the monitor, and then there was silence. "There's no way that Nomu could have been beaten by a student. I had designed it to be more than enough for any of the school faculty." "I'm afraid Tamura speaks the truth. One of the students possessed a quirk we were not prepared for. It somehow managed to immobilize Nomu, causing him to basically shut down." "Then why didn't you retrieve it?" the second voice said. "If you had managed to bring back the subject, I could ascertain the cause behind this unforeseen anomaly. The problem was for some reason I couldn't get close to Nomu. Whatever that student had done to Nomu was also able to affect me as well. The green lightning this student created somehow destabilized my corporeal form. If I had stayed any closer to it, I fear my body would have become too unstable to maintain," Kurogiri said as the monitor stopped for a time. "Green lightning, you say?" asked the first voice. The screen went silent. Tamura asked, "Sensei?" as the sound-only screen on the monitor looked back at him. "It's nothing, Tamura. Today has been disappointing, but it has also had some good points," Sensei said, and the second voice agreed. "I agree. The League of Villains name is disposable at best. They have no idea of our true intentions. We'll simply gather new members, more efficiently and better prepared for our next phase. And you've gained some valuable experience from this, Tamura. Never underestimate your opponents, and always have a backup plan," Sensei said as Tamura agreed. "As for this student who beat Nomu, we shall plan accordingly. Especially if he has gained what I believe he has gained. This will be most interesting," the voice on the other end said with a smile. The face without eyes looked happy about the new development. As soon as the screen went black, Tamura nodded. He was furious at the bug that had messed up his game. You could bet that he would make him pay. The incident at the USJ was finally over. The police were now catching the rest of the bad guys, and the staff was getting the rest of the class ready to go home safely. But at that very moment, Izuku Midoriya, Toshinori Yagi, and Recovery Girl were in the nurse's office. Izuku was talking about what happened in his fight with Nomu and how his new powers made things act strangely. Then all of a sudden, I blasted that Nomu thing into the air. I don't know how to explain it, but it felt like I hit him with electricity, Izuku asked as Toshinori hummed to himself. Toshinori shook his head and said, "Your powers are getting stranger and stranger by the day, young Midoriya." He was still trying to figure out what was going on. Toshinori shook his head no as he asked, "Do you think this is something that comes with One for All?" "I don't know. In all the time I possessed One for All, I was never able to stun my opponent with anything other than a good punch to the stomach. But from the way you explained it, I believe One for All may be affecting your spider powers," he said. Toshinori gave Izuku a shrug and asked, "Is that possible?" "Theoretically, yes. Normally when One for All is given to someone with a quirk, it gives their quirk a significant boost in power. I however didn't have a quirk, so all I got was superhuman abilities from the power of 7 generations of former users. But for you, it's doing something with your quirk." "Maybe because his quirk isn't very stable," the Recovery Girl said after fixing the boy's ribs and finishing healing his wounds. "Remember, this quirk was given by a spider that was part of a larger unknown experiment. Because we don't have any form of data on the test subject, there are bound to be unforeseen side effects or changes to your ever-growing power, not to mention how One for All will affect them down the line," she said while Izuku nodded. "Makes sense. First the invisibility from before I had One for All, and then this electric blast that came after it. Seems like every time I get closer to controlling my powers, the less I know about them," he said as Toshinori laughed. He said, "Welcome to the real world, kid," and then he got serious. "Now, there's something else I need to talk to you about, and no doubt Aizawa is going to grill you when he recovers. Your teacher gave you clear instructions not to interfere with his battle, but you did so anyway. Putting yourself in grave danger because of it, which is highly reckless," Toshinori said as Izuku suddenly shuddered. It was already tough for him with the strict teacher. He just hoped he hadn't broken through and been kicked out of school. "But if I'm being honest," Toshinori said as Izuku looked up at the happy man. "You showed your strength today, not just your super strength, but also your character strength. And that makes me even more proud of you," he told Izuku, who looked at his mentor and smiled. He said, "Thank you, All Might," and the number 1 hero smiled back. He asked, "By the way, how are Aizawa and 13? As All Might sighed. Aizawa came out with only a broken arm, and from what we could tell some serious lacerations to said arm from that user's quirk. But all things considered, he's lucky it's not more serious. 13 however had lacerations on her upper arms and back. But from what I heard she's stable and should make a full recovery," he said. It felt good, so Izuku said, "That's good. To be honest, I think Aizawa got off easy. Who knows what would have happened if you hadn't stepped in, Midoriya?" Recovery Girl asked the boy as she nodded. "That being said, normally I would reprime you for putting yourself in unnecessary danger. But given the circumstances, I'll let it slide for now," she said while moving her chair. "But for now, I suggest you take it easy. You and your class have been through a harrowing experience well above your year level. Take the time to relax and process the events. And don't go testing your new powers just yet. I want to conduct a proper test when school starts back up on Monday," she suggested as Izuku nodded. He said, "Understood," and stood up. "I should probably tell Mom and Eri that I'm okay," he said. "I'm sure they'd be crazy worried about me if the police told her." He could already picture his mother's face as she worried about him. "Yes, I'll call you later, young Midoriya," All Might said as Izuku left the infirmary with a nod. "That was too close," he said out of the blue as the Recovery Girl looked at him. "If Midoriya wasn't as strong, or if I hadn't been a few seconds late," he said, looking down at himself with a guilty face. As Recovery Girl put her papers in order, she told Toshinori, "You can't blame yourself for this. This was something no one could have predicted. None of us could have foreseen someone making their way past UA's barrier. We're just lucky none of the students was seriously injured, and thanks to your protege, Aizawa came out with far fewer injuries than he would have gotten otherwise," she said as Toshinori nodded slightly. Still, he said to himself, "I should have been there on time." But I wasted my time before, and the students almost suffered for it. Indeed, Nezu said when he walked up to the door. You do need to be more careful with your time limit, but we also can't always rely on you to come to the rescue every time. That is the point of training your successor, the principal said. But, given how the students were able to repel the invasion, I feel more confident that this generation of heroes will be more than up to the task when the symbol of peace retires, he said as All Might agreed. But still, that thing Midoriya faced. There's something I don't like about it. He remembered seeing the Nomu being carried away while being heavily restrained and staring into its wild eyes. From what young Todoroki heard, it was said to be designed to fight me at full strength. If that's true, I have a bad feeling about this that I really hope isn't true, All Might said as he had a bad thought about an enemy who had died a long time ago. That night, later, at the Midoriya home, I was so scared, Izuku. Inko said to Izuku as she, Eri, and herself sat down to eat. I almost passed out when the school called to tell me what happened. Inko said about how she almost passed out when she heard about the USJ incident. And poor Eri. She was shaking with worry about her brother. She pointed to Eri, who was sitting closer to Izuku than usual. I'm sorry, Mom. Honestly, it wasn't something anyone could have seen coming. But the teachers were able to handle it, and no one got hurt badly. Plus, you know, I have a healing factor, so anything that could have happened to me, I could walk off later on. That's not the point, Izuku. His mom yelled, making the boy jump. I know your dream is to become a hero, and I want to help you reach that goal. But, after hearing what happened, I just got so worried. You and Eri are the only things I care about in this world. If I lost either of you, Izuku began to cry as he realized what Ochako was talking about. He put his hand on hers to comfort her and said, I'm sorry, Mom. He tried to reassure her. I know it must have been just as scary to hear about it. To be honest, I was just as scared. But I promise I'll be okay. He told her, it's not like when I was a kid. I'm stronger now. I can be a hero. And I thank you for being there for me. Even though I know you worry about me. I love you, Mom. Inko wiped her tears away. I love you too, Izuku. She then turned to Eri, who was crying a little herself. She pointed to Eri as the little girl hugged her surrogate mother and brother while the Midoriya got better. There were still doubts in Inko's mind about her son's future, but the fact that he was here with her, safe and sound, helped her feel better. And now that Eri was her daughter, neither of them would be alone. At the same time, UA Academy that same time, the Blood Hero teachers, Vlad King, Snipe, Midnight, Nezu, and All Might in his shrunken form, got together, and Detective Naomasa Tsukachi read the report on the event. So far, we haven't found anything about the name, Shigaraki, or anyone who had a disintegration quirk when they were 20 or 30 years old. The same goes for people who use Warp Gate. Either the census never found them or they were just fake names used in the attack. But in all honesty, they're the ones who got away with not registering, Tsukachi wrote in his report as the teachers nodded. So, all in all, we don't have any evidence? The ringleader got away, Snipe basically summed up. If we had arrived earlier, I could have hurt one of them at least. Buy us some time. Snipe complained about being late for the invasion. It was impossible for anyone to see this coming, Snipe, and we're lucky that no students were hurt or worse. All things considered, I think we got lucky, Midnight said to Nexu, who nodded. Yes, Aizawa's wounds weren't as bad as they could have been, and 13 should be fine soon. But we can't let this happen again, so I'm having Powerloader and the support department step up our early warning systems and security. The students' safety is our top priority, the principal said, and All Might nodded. No matter what, it was good that young Midoriya killed that Nomu thing before I got there. Everything he did to the villain seemed to stop him from moving at all, which made cleaning up the rest very easy. All Might praised his student and felt proud of him. I heard that. That student is very interesting. You can disappear, be super strong, crawl up walls, and now this. Electric blast? This kid could pretty much fight an army by himself, Vlad said, and he swore that the kid wasn't in his class. From what we heard, whatever Izuku Midoriya did to the bad guy named Nomu seemed to destabilize him. On top of that, Nomu didn't seem to do anything else when Shigaraki left. It's strange that we've found more than one quirk in Nomu's body so far, Tsukachi said as he read the medical reports. Midnight asked All Might, Who was having a dark thought? Multiple quirks? I've heard that some people are born with quirks that can do two things at once, but multiple? That must be a mistake. In either case, this attack was bizarre. No rational person would dare attempt a full-on assault on the UA even if they had meticulous preparation. From the reports we got from the students and the teachers present, this Shigaraki character seemed to mention nothing of his own quirk but kept boasting that no one could beat Nomu and their plan to kill me. And from what Aizawa mentioned, when things didn't go as planned, he started to act visibly upset. If I had to sum up his character, I'd say he was a spoiled little brat. A man-child, so to speak. All Might thought as Vlad raised his eyebrows. So he's just a kid with a lot of power who doesn't know how to use it, Vlad said, making Midnight look worried. Midnight said as Snipe shook his head, maybe he never got the counseling that most kids got in elementary school. Maybe so, but it doesn't matter. He did it anyway, and now he's a criminal, Snipe said as Sukawichi showed him the report. Still, this man-child managed to recruit 72 villains into his League of Villains for this daring attack. From our reports, all of the 72 are low-level thugs, not a mastermind behind any of them. It's reasonable to deduce that because of how hard we've been cracking down on them, they were able to fall behind such simple-minded villainy, he said. There are lots of people who don't know how to use their quirks and act bad sometimes. That spider bite makes me wonder what would have happened if Midoriya and I had never met. He would still be on the hero's path, though. All Might thought he wouldn't fall that way. But in any case, it's thanks to your efforts that we're able to conduct this investigation. We'll continue our efforts and expand our investigation to try and find the perpetrators of this attack, Sukachi said as Nezu thought. Nezu thought, a man-child. In a way, he's like our students. They both have so much potential, and I suppose that there may be someone who is nurturing and guiding his evil, but All Might didn't like the sound of that. I don't even want to think about what that could mean, All Might said with anger as his old wound hurt. Warehouse on Saturday. Izuku and All Might were flying around the room while full cowl burst from Izuku's body. They were trying to get the young Midoriya to use the same electrical attack he used against the Nomu. But it's not the same thing to want to do something and actually do it. All Might moved very quickly as he and Midoriya fought in the air. All Might had held back 50% of his true power, but Izuku used all 20% of his power every time. Because All Might could feel his spider-enhanced strength at 30%. Izuku was able to block his weakest punch and then hit him with a haymaker. He was only trying to make another electrical blast at the time. The fist hit All Might's in the forearm, but the pro hero was able to easily block the low-level attack. That is, low for All Might's, because he backed off from the attack when he saw the boy's arms light up again. When he tried to hit again, the blow was the same as the first time. Not a big electrical blast. After being at it for hours, All Might slid back after the boy punched him. They both took a moment to catch their breath. All Might asked Izuku, "How was that? Did you feel anything?" Izuku shook his head. "No, I still didn't feel like what I did at the USJ," Izuku said with a sigh, ending one for all. "I still don't exactly know how it happened in the first place. I thought it was similar to when I absorbed Kaminari's lightning, but this one was different. It was like I was supercharged by a car battery. If I considered One for All as being an egg in a microwave, then this would be like trying to get a defibrillator to charge up by hand. Does that make sense?" he asked as All Might couldn't stop laughing and reverted to his skinny form. He laughed as Izuku sulked at his teacher and asked, "Sort of, boy, you sure do come up with some lame analogies, don't you, kid?" All Might, but don't worry. Remember what I told you when you first got your powers. It takes time to master them. This is just another step on your way to becoming a hero, and based on what I've seen, I know you can do it, he told Izuku with pride in his voice. Izuku said, "Thank you, All Might," and both he and his mentee were happy about the piece. "What are you going to call this new power of yours anyway?" All Might asked Izuku as he thought. "Well, I've been thinking about calling it Venom Blast. What do you think?" All Might raised an eyebrow. Venom Blast. Yeah, when I fought that Nomu guy, he didn't seem to be able to get up after I punched him. And when I did my initial research on spider species, I noted that their neurotoxic venom has paralytical properties. And seeing as Nomu was practically paralyzed from my attacks and it sort of was, well, blasted. I thought, why not call it Venom Blast? All Might nodded. I like it, it sounds catchy. Any side effects you should be worried about though? As Recovery Girl said, we still need to be careful about your powers and how One for All may affect them, he warned as Izuku agreed. Well, it seems to make me more resistant to electrical attacks, but I don't think there are many other bad effects. At least not on me. My gear, though, he pointed to the workshop table where his web shooter and gym uniform were. I saw that the discharge burns my suit a little and completely overloaded my web shooters again. That's another thing I need to talk to support about. I can't have my gear shorting out by my powers now, can I? He asked himself as he began to think about what kinds of insulation his suit would need. Indeed, I'm glad to see you once more think about your skills just as much as you do your heroics, All Might said, and Izuku agreed. He told the number one hero, well, I wouldn't have made it this far without you, All Might. The hero looked at the young man. No, young Midoriya. All I did was point you in the right direction. From then on, it was your own will and determination that got you here. I couldn't be more proud of you, he told Izuku, who felt proud hearing them. All Might said, now then, before he buffed up. When Izuku nodded and channeled full cowl over his body with a determined grin, All Might said, let's get back to training, young Midoriya. The day is still young, and we may just figure out this Venom strike of yours yet. Yes, sir. I knew it. They heard all of a sudden as they rushed to the door and saw the Recovery Girl standing there with a mad face. Everyone in Might and Izuku screamed in shock, our Recovery Girl, as she slammed her cane on top of their heads. I thought I told you two not to try anything new until I did a test on Monday. Did those fights damage your hearing or something? She yelled at the two men who were moving away from the short woman. And Izuku agreed. It's not like that Recovery Girl. Midoriya had this sudden idea to use his new power and wanted to test it, All Might tried to explain. The old heroine glared at Izuku and his friend. Why yeah. I had this idea and I wanted to try it out, but I promise we were being careful, Izuku managed to say. She yelled at them for an hour all while telling them off for their dangerous stunt. Unbelievable. You two were meant to be together. You both have the same self-destructive tendencies that are going to kill me early. Well, at least she cares, I thought. All Might and Izuku think as they get down on their knees in front of the mad woman. The woman did nothing but sigh and rub her forehead. I'm getting too old for this, just make sure you don't go overboard and for God's sake don't try and electrocute yourself. I've got paperwork to fill out, she said and left the warehouse. All Might and Izuku looked at the door, then at each other, and finally at the jumper cables they were going to use. Let's call it a day, All Might said, and Izuku agreed. Yes sir, it was around the same time in Yamanashi Prefecture. While this was going on, a little old man in Yamanashi Prefecture was reading a letter that was addressed to him while the news about the USJ incident played in the background. Hello, it feels like summer is almost here because the air is warm. I hope this letter finds you well and in a good mood, sir. Hey, I'm sorry I haven't talked to you in a while. I've been really busy with my hero work. This semester, I got a job teaching at UA Academy, but I think you already knew that. It's my turn to show the newest students the way to heroism. At first, I plan to use this job to look for someone who could take over for One for All. Someone with good grades and a strong quirk. Funny enough, I met a young man before I even looked. Had the name Izuku Midoriya. He jumped into a situation that made the pro heroes and me hesitate just to save the life of one of his classmates, even though he was weak and didn't have any quirks of his own. He didn't have a plan, but he knew what he had to do. He showed me that he has the qualities of a real hero and reminded me of what it means to be a pro hero. I told him my secret and chose to share my quirk with him. However, there was a small, unexpected change. Do you believe this? Before I gave him One for All, a spider bite gave him superpowers. I know it's strange, but it's helped him grow and gain a lot of control over One for All faster than I thought possible. Since he got the quirk, he's also gotten into a lot of trouble. For example, save a little girl from the Yakuza's rest. A story that I will tell you later. His new powers may grow in ways I can't even begin to imagine. He still has a long way to go. You might be the person I need to ask for help and advice. Stay tuned for more news, but for now, please take care of yourself as the seasons change. Thank you, Toshinori Yagi. So he found someone to take over as One for All? Izuku Midoriya. the retired hero thought to himself as he read the letter over and over. Gaining superpowers from a spider bite. Well, now that's new. Well, Toshinori seems to vouch for him, but I guess I'll need to judge him myself. Still, I wonder how you would have reacted to all this, Nana. You'd get a good laugh, I can guess that much. He looked at the ceiling as he smiled. Well, Izuku Midoriya, let's find out what makes you special. Monday morning in the US school, Class 1A. When the police were done with their investigation, the kids could go back to school. Over the short but long weekend, Izuku tried to use his new Venom Blast powers again. But it wasn't as easy as flipping a light switch, just like when they could disappear. On the other hand, Izuku was excited to face the challenge. Thanks to the new information about his Venom Blast, he also had a long list of things to do to improve his costume. Now he could voice them to Mei and Powerloader. Morning, Deku, Ochako said as she ran into the hall and met him. How are you feeling today? I'm sorry I didn't check up on you, but the police had to escort me home, she said as Izuku said yes. Good morning, Uraraka. Don't worry about it, they pretty much walked me home too. But yeah, I'm feeling a lot better. I told you that my body has a healing factor, so I was pretty much better by the time we left school, Izuku said, rolling his arm around to show what he meant. She said, that's a relief, and Izuku smiled at her worry. He told her, by the way. You were right, and she blinked in surprise. When I got home, Mom and my sister were pretty worried about me. I understand what you meant now, it's not just about me anymore. I need to be more careful, thank you, he said with a smile. No problem, Deku. How about we trade phone numbers so we can reach each other if something goes wrong? She asked Izuku, who blinked and turned red. As he spoke, his voice showed some worry. Sure, no problem, I'm getting a girl's phone number. That's cool, he thought as they sent each other emails. What they didn't know was that a girl with pink skin was grinning at them from afar. She said to herself, "Ship ahoy," and laughed at the two of them. After a short time, the rest of Class 1A arrived at their classroom. Izuku moved to sit down, but stopped when Bakugo gave him a mean look. Good morning, Kachan, Izuku said. Bagwo just gave him a mean look. Deku, I heard you beat that thing that looked like a bird's face, he said as Izuku blinked. Bird face. Okay, Nomu. He did look a bit like a bird, I guess. Izuku thought as Bakugo just growled. Don't think you're better than me. If I had been on time, I would have blown that walking steak to pieces, he said with his arms crossed. Still, I've got plenty more questions for you. Like this, green lightning. I heard from the others. How many more secrets are you hiding, nerd? Izuku sighed as Bagwo growled. As Izuku sat down, he thought to himself, you have no idea, Kachan. To be honest, that was new to me too. And I don't think I'm better than you. You and I both have a long way to go, he said as Bakugo felt a blood vessel on his head. He then clicked his tongue and looked away. Ida yelled from the front, all right, everyone. The teacher stood in front of the class and told them, it's time for the morning period. Everyone take your seats. Ida grumpily made his way to Ciro's seat and Ciro said, dude, we're already in our seats. You're the only one that's not. He yelled, curses, as Uraraka tapped him on the shoulder. She said, there, as she tried to comfort Mr. Ida Tenya, who takes things way too seriously. Suyu put her finger on her chin and said, still, I wonder who will teach our class since Aizawa-sensei is in the hospital and all. The door opened all of a sudden, and Aizawa stood there with his arm cast and slung. As Aizawa walked up to the podium, he told everyone, be quiet. The class yelled, Aizawa-sensei. The man pointed to Kirishima's arm and said, sir, shouldn't you still be in the hospital? He turned to look at Izuku, who flinched when the man looked at her. My injuries weren't as bad as they could have been. The only reason Recovery Girl hasn't fully healed it yet is because she's busy helping 13. I don't have that much stamina. I distinctly recall telling all of you not to get involved during my fight. You put yourself in unnecessary danger, he said as Izuku agreed. Yes, sir, he said. I was planning to lecture you, reprimand you for getting involved when I distinctly told you all not to, but I've been informed multiple times by Recovery Girl that my injuries would have been a lot more severe had you not interfered. So for now I'll let you off with a warning, but I do not want a repeat of this, clear? Aizawa asked as Izuku nodded. He said, Given my track record, I can't promise that, sir, and Aizawa let out a sigh. This shouldn't have been done so early in the morning. In any case, I'm aware all of you have been through a harrowing experience, but I feel like I need to remind you that your real battle is about to begin, he said as the class got anxious. The UA Sports Festival is coming up. When Aizawa glared at the class, everyone shouted, "Oh yeah, this is a school," and then they stopped talking right away. In Japan, the UA Sports Festival was one of the biggest events. All of the students at UA, from heroic to support, would compete in a series of games to show off their unique skills and quirks. In the old days, this would have been like the Olympics, but as more people started using quirks, it lost a lot of its shine. So, schools in each country held their own sports festivals, with UA being the most important sports event in Japan. Mr. Aizawa, isn't it a little soon to host the sports festival, especially after the recent villain attack? Jiro asked as Ojiro agreed. Then Ojiro said, they could attack so many people in one place, and Aizawa agreed. The administration thinks this is the best way to let the public know that the situation is under control. Also, security will be tightened this year because of this, so it's very unlikely that another villain incident will happen. But this is also a chance for the students. As you all know, major hero agencies, top-tier heroes, and scouting agents will be watching this event, so this will be one of only 3 chances you get to be noticed by the hero community during your class years, Aizawa said as he saw how determined and scared Mineta was. But what if the villains show up? Is it really worth it? Mineta asked in a shaking voice, and Izuku looked at him. It's okay, this festival is important, and you do want to stand out, right? Izuku asked Mineta. I know, but still, I couldn't let this chance pass up. If we want to become pro-heroes, we have to be ready to take the risk. Momo spoke up with a determined look on her face. Mineta put her hand up and said, yeah, unless you're dead. Kaminari raised his hand. I heard some of the participants that get spotted end up becoming sidekicks at agencies after graduation. So this is a really good opportunity for us, Kaminari said as Jiro agreed. Yeah, but I hear that sometimes people remain as a sidekick for their entire careers because they missed out. I guess you fit the bill for that part, what with you being dumb and all? Jiro said as Kaminari flinched at that punch. The sports festival is very important because joining a well-known hero agency will give you a lot of experience and popularity points, Aizawa told the class. So, if you want to break into the industry and become a pro-hero, this is your opportunity. 1 chance this year, 3 chances in a lifetime. No aspiring hero can afford to miss out on this opportunity. That means no one should slack off on their training, clear? As Izuku looked at his hand and the new power it held, everyone yelled, yes, sir. Izuku nodded in determination. After the 4th period was over, the students in Class 1A started to talk about the UA event and their plan to make it happen. Kirishima was excited for the event and said, man, I knew this was going to happen. But now I'm feeling the tension. If we want to make it to the big leagues, we really have to give it our all. While the more excited students gathered around, Siro said, this could be our big chance to make it into the Heroes League. Toru yelled, I'm scared. I need to work really hard to stand out, as she jumped around with joy. Especially for you, Ojiro told the girl who couldn't be seen because he felt bad for her. It doesn't matter what I do. I'll stand out. That means the scouts won't be able to take their eyes off of me, Aoyama said with a smile and a spin. But no one paid attention to him. Kaminari told the boy with many arms, man, you are so lucky. Everyone is bound to notice you with your quirk. The boy looked at his arms. It's true, but what matters most is that I show everyone how useful I am, Shoji replied as Jiro began to laugh. Jiro laughed as she remembered his funny face during both the battle trial and the USJ invasion. That's true, and you can't help it when you overuse your quirk and end up like that, he said. Kaminari yelled in despair, man, why do you have to talk badly about me like that? Even so, Momo told Izuku as he blinked, I think Todoroki, Bakugo, and you, Midoriya, will be the hardest to beat. Me? He asked, not sure what to say. When Bakugo heard about Deku's new power, he growled and asked, yeah, man? Your powers are like a total hack or something. First you had invisibility powers and now you have electric powers. Are you trying to become a one-man army or something? He laughed nervously, your guess is just as good as mine. But, he said, now that I have these new electric powers, I need to focus on how to control them. He looked at his hand. Some of the other students nodded as he asked, but nothing worth having ever comes easy, right? In response to the Lightning Boy's cringe, Jiro said, at least you're taking it more seriously than others, Mr. We. Hey, not cool. Deku. Ida. Ida and Izuku both heard as they turned around and squinted at Ochako's scary aura. She had a serious look on her face. Let's give it our all. What the heck was that? Ida and Izuku screamed in shock as Jiro leaned back. And someone is really taking it seriously, she said, and Mina agreed. Maybe she's PM. Mineta barely got out of the way before Suyu hit him in the face with her tongue, and Deku was thinking about using his web shooters to attach him to the wall. When Ochako saw the rest of the class, she yelled at them and raised her fist. Her eyes were fixed on them. Everyone! Let's crush the sports festival! She yelled as they tentatively raised their fists at the normally happy girl, who looked very angry. Izuku smiled as he joined in the fun. I guess I never asked Uraraka why he wants to be a hero after all. Izuku thought as he looked at his first friend since getting to UA. Afternoon. Lunchtime as Ochako scratched the back of her head in shame, Ida and Izuku yelled, for money? You want to be a hero for money? I know, it's kind of lame to want to be a hero just for the money. And when I hear about how Ida and Deku want to be heroes for ideals and stuff, it makes me embarrassed to admit it, she said with an embarrassed look. Don't be silly. There's nothing lame about wanting an easier life, Ida said, and Izuku agreed. Izuku tried to reassure Ochako, yeah, there's nothing to be ashamed about. I know, but you see, my family owns a construction company and sometimes I help out. But the thing is, we're kind of poor. Neither my parents nor our employees don't have the necessary quirks, so it's hard to find work, she said as Izuku thought. But since your quirk lets you change gravity, I think it would be perfect for that kind of work, Izuku asked as Ochako slapped her. That's my thought exactly. Initially, I wanted to work with my parents, but when I told my parents, they said that I should be focused on making my dream come true. They told me that nothing would make them happier than letting me become a hero like I wanted to. I agreed, but only on the condition that when I make it as a hero, I would use the money to help them out and send them on a Hawaii vacation. So that's the reason why I want to become a hero, so that I can use the money to give them the life they deserve, she said as Ida nodded his head furiously. Ida told Izuku, bravo, Uraraka. Nothing is more honorable than helping family and friends. I couldn't agree with you more. Izuku raised an eyebrow and said, yeah, I get where you're coming from. I wanted to become a hero ever since I was 5 years old when I first saw All Might save those people. I mean, who didn't? He asked as they agreed. That was my dream for the longest time, but when my sister came along, I realized that there's more to being a hero than just because. I want to be a hero so I can protect the ones I love. So I get where you're coming from, Uraraka. Being a hero is more than just popularity, it's about making the situation better for everyone. And I think that's a great attitude, he said with a smile. As All Might came around the corner, he yelled, young Midoriya is here. He asked the man hiding around the corner, All Might, what are you doing here? He held up the cloth-wrapped bento box and said, lunch, care to join me? Uraraka laughed as tons of saliva shot out of her mouth. He sounds like a school maiden. Forget the jokes, I need to talk to you about something important. Please follow me, All Might asked Izuku, who nodded. His friends agreed and left the 2-1 for all users alone, telling him, sure, I'll catch you guys later, okay? Ida gave Uraraka a shrug and asked, so, what do you think All Might wants to talk to Deku about? It might have more to do with the incident back at the USJ. Midoriya was the one that beat that Nomu by himself. And from what I've heard, that thing was supposed to be as strong as All Might, Ida said as Ochako agreed. I saw, it nearly killed Aizawa-sensei. Good thing Deku managed to beat it. I guess that's why All Might wants to talk to him, she said as Ida agreed. Could be. He might be interested in Midoriya since he beat Nomu, Ida said as Todoroki overheard them in line and narrowed his eyes when Izuku was brought up. In the meantime, the faculty lounge. Izuku asked the number 1 hero, your time limit has gone down? And the hero replied, yes. They were sitting in the teacher's lounge. Yep, instead of 3 hours now, I can only remain in my hero form for 2. Although given the fact I was supposed to fight Nomu, I guess I should count myself lucky. If I had fought him, I wager I would have shortened my time significantly, All Might said while Izuku nodded. Oh, I see. Then it's a good thing I beat him, right? He asked, and All Might agreed. Toshinori gave him a light blow to the head and said, Still, I feel bad about all this. Because you gave me your quirk, you're slowly losing your power. Hey. None of that, we've been over this. I was always going to lose my powers when I chose my successor. Just be grateful I only lost an hour on my time limit instead of 2. Which honestly is a bonus for us, Toshinori assured his friend who nodded. Besides, we have something else to talk about, the sports festival. I know, it's one of the most televised events of the year, it's one of the only 3 chances I'll get to promote myself to potential hero agencies, Izuku said as Toshinori agreed. He said, right, but there's also a problem, and Izuku raised an eyebrow. You know Chisaki is still out there, almost certainly planning to take Eri back from you, Toshinori said. Izuku clenched his fist at the thought of the man. Izuku growled, I will never let him take her back, All Might nodded. I know you won't, and so far he hasn't made a move against you or Eri, and we've done extensive work keeping him from locating her. But it's more than likely he will be watching the sports festival as well, trying to narrow down your identity. As far as we know, he isn't aware that your family has adopted her. So far he only knows someone with a spider-like quirk took Eri from him. You did well to hide your identity. But, he may come after you to try and extract any information from you. Toshinori put up his hands and said, I'll never let that happen. I'd rather die than let that jerk take Eri away from us. I know, but calm down, kid. As I was saying, he knows about your spider-like powers, but not your identity. And since there are multiple other spider-themed quirks, he might be having a hard time trying to narrow you down. However, the point I want to get across to you is that you need to be careful going into the sports festival, he said. Now, you can bring in items that you have created yourself or help your quirk during the sports festival. But for this one, I advise you not to bring your mask, as he may be able to recognize it and try to come after Eri, he told Izuku. He said, I understand, All Might. With my new Venom Blast abilities, I hope he won't be able to figure out that it was me in the alley that night, if I can get it to work right. He looked at his hand and tried to picture the green lightning. How is your Venom Blast coming along, by the way? All Might asked as Izuku reached out. Not well, I can't explain it, but it feels like I'm hitting a roadblock. I can feel it there, crawling beneath my skin. Like a vibration of energy, but whenever I try to force it out, it just pulls back from me. Maybe I'm overthinking this? Possible. Everyone uses their powers in different ways and uses different methods to awaken and control their powers. You are no different in that regard, you just need to find a way to make it work for you. But another thing I wanted to talk about is making your debut at the sports festival, he said as Izuku agreed. Someday I will lose all my power, and no longer be able to be the symbol of peace, and as you saw, some are biding their time amongst the hive of villain that I held back for so long. The sports festival is an event that is watched by the whole country. It will be your chance to show the world that the next symbol of peace has arrived. Young Midoriya, this will be your chance to tell the world, I am here, and I want you to make the whole world know that. Izuku clenched his fist and nodded. He knew it was his duty to master One for All and leave the world with the promise that he would pick up the pace when All Might left. To stand in front of them as the new hero who would keep the peace for All Might had worked hard to achieve. But he could also use it to show the world who he was as his own hero, not just as All Might's leader. With determination, Izuku said, I won't let you down, and All Might agreed. Hey, boy, have you thought about the speech you're going to give at the festival? All Might asked Izuku as he blinked. Wait, what? Izuku asked in shock. It is tradition for the first-year student who got the highest score on the entrance exam to give a speech in front of the whole country to start the festival. Oh, didn't Aizawa tell you? As the top scorer on the entrance exam, he told him as Izuku's pupils grew and sweat ran down his face. Then he leaned back and took the whole couch with him. Young Midoriya! All Might yelled, and Izuku looked weak. It was too much for Izuku to handle, so he passed out and said, Sorry, All Might, this is all I have to say. Midoriya. After that, Class 1A Izuku still hadn't fully recovered from the shock of having to speak in front of everyone for the whole first years. He was too scared to stand up there, and for good reason. Since he was a child, he did want to be a hero. But he was always scared and nervous when he had to speak in public, especially when there were cameras around. He looked like he was being held hostage because his body would freeze up on its own. His whole life was like this. Even his school ID card, which showed that he was a student at UA, made it look like he was being held for ransom. In his defense, he said that his social anxiety came from being ignored, teased, and made fun of for being quirkless in the past. So he wasn't to blame for becoming afraid of public speaking. He also didn't want to do it at all. Izuku thought to himself, maybe I should switch to one of the less important schools. There won't be any media coverage there. Deku, are you okay? Uraraka asked as she and Iida looked at him. You've been looking real spaced out since your talk with All Might. What did he want to talk to you about? Apparently, because I got so many points on the entrance exam and made it to the top of the leaderboard, I have to give a speech at the opening ceremony. Izuku told them. Ochako and Iida took a deep breath through their teeth, and Bakugo laughed. He was mad that he wasn't at the top, but he thought Deku would probably make a fool of himself, which made him laugh. As he rubbed Izuku on the shoulder, Iida told him, I'm sure everything will be fine. Public speaking is nothing to worry about. I've seen you fight with confidence and charisma. I'm sure this will be easy for you, Bakugo said to Iida. She laughed as Iida and Ochako looked at her funny. Huh? Yeah right, Deku's been afraid of public speaking ever since we were kids. He'd freeze up the moment he's on stage, especially during a school play. Iida scolded the explosive user. Bakugo, that is not a nice thing to say about your classmate. No, he's right, Izuku moaned as he put his head on the desk. Ever since we were kids, I've hated public speaking, especially being on stage. One time I was cast as a tree in our middle school play, and I was so nervous that I tripped over some wires and almost set the stage on fire. He smiled and thought of a time when he was young and tripped over some wires while dressed as a tree and almost set the curtains on fire. Luckily, another student's parent was a pro water hero and put out the fire before it spread. But let's just say that acting wasn't my first choice of job, he said as Ochako and Iida looked at him with worried and confused looks. The bell rang, and they were told to leave. Ochako said, I'm sure nothing like that will happen. But just as they were about to leave, they saw that strangers were standing outside their homeroom door. Ochako yelled, what the heck, as she looked out into the crowd of students. While Bakugo looked at them blankly, Mineta yelled, what the heck, why are they crowding the exit? They must be checking out the competition. They must have heard about our little fight with the Villains League and are looking at us before the festival, Bakugo said as he walked toward them. It's pointless anyway, so why don't you all just fuck off you lousy mob? Language Bakugo. Don't go telling fellow students to fornicate themselves. Show some class, you are representing us, Iida yelled in anger. Don't worry, Iida. Many people have tried to stop Kachan but have failed, Izuku told his friend as he tapped him on the shoulder. This boy with shaggy purple hair, bags under his eyes, and thin eyebrows walked up to the crowd and said, I wanted to come see what all the fuss was about, the class of first years that fought real bad guys in their first week. But honestly, I didn't think they'd be this cocky. Kind of let me down, the kid said as he stood in front of the crowd and Bakugo, who was getting more and more angry. Bakugo was about to say something when Izuku walked up. Don't mind him, he's been like that since we were kids. Izuku didn't pay attention to Bakugo when he yelled, fuck off, Deku. Not all of us are like him. My name is Izuku Midoriya, and yours is? He asked the boy with purple hair. He spoke and said, Shinso Hitoshi. Izuku laughed and asked, you don't look very interesting do you? Tell me about your life, friend. Also, what class are you in? He asked as Shinso gave him a mean look. General education, the class where people who don't have strong quirks end up, Shinso told Izuku, who laughed in his head. That spider didn't really blessed me, like your friend said. They're here to check out the competition. But not me, because I have to be honest, I'm not impressed. He glared at Izuku. Did you know that teachers can evaluate students in the general education class and transfer them to the hero course? Of course, to transfer a student in, one has to be moved out, Izuku asked as Mineta gulped. That does seem a bit harsh, doesn't it? Izuku asked with a narrowed look. Such is life, but I didn't come here to make friends. This is more of a declaration of war. If you don't bring your A game to the festival, I will take your spot in the heroics class. That's all I have to say, he said as he looked at them. Hey. They heard as they saw a kid with black eyes that were massively tilted inwards and long, messy gray hair that reached his chin. The hair never seemed to change shape, which was kind of strange. Each one is lined with something very thick, jagged, and tan. This is probably his eyelashes. Like Eijiro Kirishima, he didn't seem to have any eyebrows that stood out, and his teeth were all very sharp and pointed. I'm Tetsu from Class 1B. I heard you guys got to knock around some villains at the USJ. I came here to find out if that was true, but you're just a bunch of snot-nosed punks that think you're better than us. Oh no, everyone doesn't like us. It was Bakugo who made Ochako, Izuku, and Iida think this before they looked at him. Bakugo said, whatever, as he pushed through the people. As Bakugo turned to face Kirishima, hey, man. Where are you going? You got to say something, it's your fault they all hate us now. He told the other students, these people don't matter, which made them confused. As he left, he said, being at the top is all that matters. I'm sorry to say it, but Kachan is right. Right now, they all hate us, but we need to beat them if any of us want to join the other heroes at the top. Izuku said to himself, if I want to become a famous hero, if I want to protect Eri and the people I care about, then I can't stop. After 2 weeks, UA's Stadium for Sports, there will be 2 weeks of events for UA went through tough training programs to get better. Except for Mineta, who thought she was better than everyone else, most of them took their training very seriously. This has been going on for 2 weeks, but Izuku still has trouble using his Venom Blast. When he wants to. It would either come out as sparks or nothing at all. Even though it made him sad, it wasn't going to stop him. Not at all, not now, not when the sports festival was finally here. Izuku said, this is it, while he and the other students were in the waiting room. All around him, his classmates were getting ready for what was going to happen. Mina was upset that she had to wear her gym uniform to the events, too. Aw man, I was hoping I could wear my costume, she said. It's fair for everyone else, Ojiro said as he stretched his body and tail. Some of our costumes were made to help our quirks. This way, everyone is on the same level. So then why does Midoriya get to use his web shooters? Mina asked, pointing to the boy with the green hair. Because I made these myself, and according to the bylaws, students from both heroics and development departments can use any equipment they made themselves, so these are an exception. So don't blame me because I made my stuff, he said as Mina cried. She said, unfair, and then she stuck her tongue out at him. Rakudoshi asked, I wonder what they have planned for us in the first round. He was feeling tense. Fumikage kept his cool and said, no matter what, we must keep going. Right, Shoji said while Mineta wrote the kanji on his hand out of fear and then swallowed it. He yelled as he walked into the room, everyone, put on your game faces. We're about to enter the arena soon. Izuku gave them a nod and got ready in his mind for anything they could throw at them. Izuku turned around and saw Todoroki walk up to him. He heard someone say, Midoriya. Izuku raised an eyebrow because this was the first time he and Todoroki had ever talked. He asked the boy with 2 heads of hair, what's up, Todoroki? While everyone else looked at them. He looked at Izuku and everyone else with confusion and said, from an objective point of view, you are one of the biggest problems I have to solve. Huh? Compared to everyone here, I'm well above them in terms of power. But you are nothing like them. You managed to defeat that monster at the USJ, who was supposedly designed to be as strong as All Might, Todoroki said as he looked at him. The fact that All Might himself has his eyes on you, means that you are in a sense, like All Might himself. That's a bit of a stretch, don't you think? I'm not as strong as All Might. I just got lucky with that Nomu when my Venom Blast powers kicked in. Izuku tried to sway. Since I don't want to know what's going on between you two, Todoroki told Izuku. Just know that I will beat you today. They then looked at each other. Wow, why are there so many war declarations lately? Denki asked as Bakugo clicked his tongue and Kirishima stood up and walked over to Todoroki. Kirishima asked Todoroki, what the hell are you trying to do? Why are you trying to start a fight right before we start? We're all classmates, right? Todoroki dodged his hand. Don't get the wrong idea. I'm not here to make friends. This isn't a team event, and I have my own plans, Todoroki said as he turned to leave. Wow. Talk about being dramatic. Listen, I don't know what's going on in your head or your personal life, and it's stuff I won't even begin to understand. But I'm not one to back down from a challenge, he said as he looked at Todoroki. Everyone here knows what they're up against. We all want to make it to the top, and kids from other departments will be trying their hardest. So I'm going to go out there and give it my all. I just wonder, after seeing all your fights, will you? Todoroki clenched his left fist in anger at the implication, and the two of them stared at each other. Did it just get colder in here? Denki asked, shaking a little. The other students walked toward the main auditorium in silence while giving themselves a mean look to show that they were serious. People all over Japan were glued to their TVs to watch the opening events of the UA event. High-class sports event. Eri watched her brother from the comfort of their couch while Inko looked on with worry. Izuku, be careful, Inko warned as she sucked on her tissues to get ready for the tears that were about to come. Welcome everyone to the annual UA Sports Festival, First-Year Division, where the next generation of heroes and heroines will face off in a series of challenges to prove they have what it takes to become a hero. I'm your host Present Mike, along with my co-host Eraserhead, Present Mike said, while Aizawa just breathed. Sometimes I hate you, Principal, Aizawa thought as he had to commentate on the event because he was hurt and the only person who could translate and give Present Mike an unbiased report. All right everyone, making their way in is the one you've all been waiting for. The freshman class that managed to fight off a villain assault on their first day, is Class 1A of the Heroics Department. Midoriya groaned, geez, set bigger goals for us. He was feeling a little uneasy in the crowded stadium. Some of them felt like they were being chopped liver after hearing the introductions for the other classes. Next up are the Heroics classes of B. Then we have classes C, D, and E from the General Studies class. And finally, classes F, G, and H from the support class, the presenter said over the mic. One grunted, TCH, damn heroics, treating us like chopped liver, but Shinso just stared. Midnight walked onto the stage and blew a cat whistle as she looked around at her costume. Now, everyone plays fair, she said. Is that appropriate clothing for a sporting event? Tokiyami asked. Mineta nodded his head, and blood was running down his nose. Thank you, my clothes are perfect. Now, let's start with the pledge from the student who got the highest score on the Heroics entrance exam. Izuku Midoriya, she said as Izuku nodded and briefly became invisible. He walked awkwardly toward the stage, becoming more like a blocky version of himself because he didn't want to be there. Midnight asked Izuku, sometime this week, Midoriya. As Izuku woke up and ran to the stage. The other students laughed and thought he was just talking nonsense right away. The weight of all of Japan was on him as he looked out at the many people in front of him. When he became a hero, this was what he had to look forward to. He looked over and saw All Might in the teacher's box. He gave his student a nod. After that, Izuku closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The crowd laughed, and he began, hello, welcome everyone. I know a lot of other people wish they were standing here instead of me. Trust me, I wish someone else was here right now. To be honest, I never thought I'd get this far. I never thought I'd be standing here, going to the US, and training to be a hero. He said what was on his mind, even though most people thought he was doubting himself and some thought he was just a lucky kid. But I am here right now. The crowd fell silent as the boy's eyes got tough. I am here because I worked hard like everyone else. I studied, I trained, and pushed myself to the limit and I did everything in my power to make it into UA and today, like everyone here, I'm going to try my hardest to make it to the top. Just like everyone else. Because right now, I am here, to show the world what I can do, what we all can do. So that one day we can stand together and protect the things we love. The people we love, and that's my pledge, to go beyond. Plus ultra. He shouted the last part as he started. Quiet, then the crowd roared as they cheered the speech. All Might smiled and said, well done, young Midoriya. There were tears in Inko's eyes as she watched her son on TV and smiled. Eri smiled too as she hugged the mask he made her. Midnight said, Well said, Midoriya gave a nod, and then walked back to the others. Nice speech, Deku, Ochako said, and Iida agreed. Yes, I agree, that was a stirring speech, he said, and Izuku agreed. He felt his knees buckle and his stomach turn over as he said, Great. I never want to do it again. I'm just glad I didn't throw up there, he said under his breath as Ochako and Iida praised him. That's out of the way. Let's move on to the first event, the preliminary rounds. What will it be? Midnight asked as she pointed to the monitor. Before it got to the obstacle course. She told the students, the obstacle course. All 11 classes will compete. They will run 4 kilometers around the outside of the stadium. You can do anything you want as long as you stay on the track. The students agreed and got ready to start. With everyone in line, Izuku thought, this is it. The lights turned on and said, this is where I show the world that I am here. As the light went out, he thought, All Might, I hope you're watching this. A small flash of green lightning lit up his eyes. That's why I'm going all out.
I will continue this story in next part. Till then, bye bye.